Please turn your cell phones off, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
9 o'clock, I'll open the session, and we have several additions, no deletions.
No deletions, lots of additions.
Then we'll go right to the very first one. Ronnie, what's the update on fairgrounds?
Do I have to use it?
Yes, you have to.
I'm not going to use the mic to look it up. Good morning, you guys.
Morning.
I just wanted to give you an update really quick on the fairgrounds. And I'll start with 4th of July because that was my first big thing that I did. It was really interesting because I'd never been to a 4th of July here, ever. So when I kind of went through the records and I was seeing what all they do and stuff, I was going, what's a water park? So anyway, but it turned out really good. Monday was kind of hard. We had a lot of people during the day, and we had the band and we had all that stuff. It was really fun. The Bulls and Bronx was lower attendance this year because part of that was a Monday, but we still came out okay. And I have to say, I've had tons of comments that fireworks were awesome. I've heard that they were the best they've been in like 10 years. And that was after that whole fireworks fiasco. That was really awesome to hear. So,
The fireworks were very good, and the local talent contest, I did go to the Bulls and
yeah,
Bronx,
I missed that.
and it was very interesting, the local talent, that was fun to watch. too.
Oh, good. Did they have 4 contestants?
Yes, at least, maybe even one more, I don't remember the number, but it was good.
Oh, yeah. See, I really wanted to watch that.
On the fireworks, because of the little confusion leading up to it, was it well attended?
Yeah, I think so. And I was texting with Cindy and a couple of people who were watching them from the school over here, and they enjoyed them and said they were really good. And they lasted 37 minutes, as opposed to, they thought it was going to be a 2-hour show. I'm like, no, we can't do that. So they just started. And I learned a lot about fireworks, a whole lot about fireworks.
We were in the stands because the Bulls and the Bronx got over with, and they were right there. It was a spectacular show.
Thank you. Yeah, I really liked it. ATM update. Y'all know it got stolen. I talked with Chief Brendel, so I guess it was last Friday, and he said it's just at the crime lab, no time estimate on when. They did have fingerprints, but until the crime lab gets back with anything. Yeah, it could be anybody. They did find the top of it. They didn't find the money part of it. We got the 2 tanks back, the oxygen resettling, in pretty bad shape. The regulators or whatever, those things that go on top of them. Anyway, those were broken. The torches were, James said it's probably cheaper to replace them than to try and fix the hoses and stuff.
Where did I don't know if you could dispose or whatever, but where were
For
they
the county,
located?
I just know that they were on federal land and it was just out that way some,
Okay,
not super
the
far out of
torches
town.
and tanks were there also.
Yes,
With the ATM,
with the top part of the ATM.
right, they were all together.
Yeah. So on the ATM, so I've been working with Ann and the board to narrow it down, and we figured out which one that we want to replace, the one that we want to replace it with. Still waiting to order it. It's going to be nip and tuck to get it in before fair, but that's our goal. I did have one question. Who do I talk to about how the insurance, I'm wondering about my budget. And is the replacement totally out of my budget, or is there insurance in this, or, you know what I mean?
There will be some insurance claims filed. Whether it meets our deductible or not is kind of the question, so we don't know that we'll actually get any kind of money back. So right now, this will impact Ronnie's budget. It will be a capital expenditure out of her funds. She has appropriation for a few big projects out there. So we'll just kind of watch as she continues to move forward on those other projects, and she'll need additional appropriation authority to complete things by June 30th.
So when we replace it, I need to take it out of those capital numbers.
It's going to be a capital expenditure, it's gonna cost over.
All right, I'm sure, and there's a bigger discussion on this probably at some other time, but I'm sure we're thinking about not only how this new one will be installed, but the access to it during non-fair grounds, events, et cetera.
Do you wanna know?
Well, I don't know, that we need to know today, but,
Okay. Well, we do know though.
okay,
It's gonna be it's gonna be inside the office, so that the outside is facing the patio part. And it'll be in an enclosed closet, for lack of a better word, with the steel door and the locked door. So the only entrance to it will be through the office and through the middle door inside the office. So it won't be really easy to get.
And for
No
protection-
freestanding.
And for protection of all of us,
Mhm.
we'll have an outside person install it.
Yes, yeah, the company is installing it, correct, yeah. Yeah, we're building the closet and then making a hole, is what we're doing. But other than that, so that's the ATM.
I really recommend if there's any way possible to have it in by fair and roundup. Get it.
That's what we're shooting for. Yeah, that's what we're shooting for. Okay, ATV, I wanted to, so now I'm on the fair. ATV, I wanted to, I guess, make it public, that we really wanted to close the ATV park, run, course, whatever it's called, for the week of fair. Because it really plays havoc with the livestock and everything back there. And so the Roundup Association, Roundup group, okay, had requested that, and said that that was in the original agreement when they built it back there, is that it would be closed during the fair. So, and I will put a notice in the paper and on Facebook saying that it will be closed for that week.
That is your fair board, your governing board
Yes.
supported that.
Yes.
And so you're just making this
Just kind of
opportunity,
making
make the
it-
public aware that the
Yes.
ATV track.
you can turn
Yeah.
the camera.
Yes, the ATV park will be closed the week of fair. Okay, got it. It brought me to one other question I have. We had a parking meeting for fair. And it came to be, I had 5 different representatives there. And one of our problems was the emergency lane getting blocked by cars just parking everywhere. And the other one was towing. So we had, Jared from Lakeview Auto Repair said that he would volunteer towing if we needed it this year. And then I was advised that the city won't do any ticketing if they're parked in the wrong spot, so that we can tow it. And they said it was up to the county, and that the county didn't really want to do it.
The sheriff
This year, so.
Oh, good.
Well, I want to say something before you, at our fair and roundup, our sheriff's department needs extra kudos. The whole fairgrounds is annexed into the city.
Yes.
And so and I'll let the sheriff talk, but I'm pretty passionate about this. As it's been annexed in, the city should be the first to call. And on the point and everything, it's their call because it is part of the city limits. Now, then I will defer that on further to the sheriff. He might say I'm wrong, but that the whole fairground is annexed into the city, and they should be the first responder.
Well, and I talked to Chief Brindle about that. And he said it's kind of a complicated situation.
No,
So-
not complicated at
So-
all. No. Sheriff, did you have anything to add?
No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
The city's philosophy is that the city is in Lake County. Well, we could say that the Lake County is in the state of Oregon, so it's Oregon State Police's responsibility. I mean, and then Oregon State is in the United States, which is federal, which is the FBI. If you want to play that game, I mean, but you're absolutely right. It is city property. It's their primary responsibility. If they need help, we'll be more than happy to respond and do whatever we can. But it is their responsibility. It is their jurisdiction, and we will help anywhere we can.
And I appreciate you not taking it to the next order of global, United Nations.
NATO's bringing tanks in right now.
But we do have quite a presence out there. We have a lot of not volunteer, but reserves.
Mhm.
Spent a lot of time out there. The order that was kept last year, I just take the opportunity to compliment the sheriff and the reserves that were there, especially during the concert and the derby time. They done excellent work. We're there, we're a presence as the county, but it is annexed into the city, and the city does need to step up some.
Okay, I will talk to him again.
And we are going to meet with Chief Grindle regarding this particular subject.
Thank you.
And it's going to be known to him that he's responsible for the fair. We will supplement however we can to assist them, but it's their primary responsibility to take care of it.
So Sheriff, I was just gonna mention before you said that, it'd be great if you and Chief Brindle were able to meet, but Lonnie representing the fairgrounds, Roberta, hopefully, I don't know if she's on yet, you know, just to start this new relationship of cooperation. I think it's a great opportunity to kind of start looking that direction. Everybody's sitting at the same table. I don't know if Arda is on, wants to be present, representing the Board of Commissioners, but it'd be nice to have that discussion just because we're partners. And we've got some new players and there's an opportunity here.
Just a word of sort of caution when it comes to towing vehicles and everything down there, and even parking tickets and such. I know our law enforcement usually has much higher priorities than to worry about that.
We're mostly talking about the fire.
And it creates a lot of havoc for your board, and you have one of your board members sitting here, so I take direction from the board how many you wanted. I'm talking the fair board, how many you want to really tow.
Yeah.
So,
No, and it would really only be the ones blocking the fire lane.
the sheriff has something.
Now, the fairgrounds and towing vehicles, the only time we can tow vehicles off private property is when it becomes a public safety concern. And parked in a fire lane is definitely a public safety concern. But my point is this, if there's no reason why representatives of the fairground cannot authorize a tow, it does not have to be law enforcement on fairground property.
Good point. It just sounds like it falls right back to you, Ronnie.
Okay. Okay, and on with the parking, we're really doing, in the meeting, we came up with a number of signs that I'm going to be getting to really designate different areas and for direction, and so they're not coming in the west entrance anymore, and we're really trying to streamline it some. Let me see, as far as vendors, we got 3 new food vendors. I shouldn't say this, I'm super excited about. And we have about 4 new different kind of product vendors, so I'm excited about that too. The marquee is the other thing. If you'll notice, sometimes when you're driving by, it's lit up, and sometimes it's not. It's going out. I talked to Starts, and Starts will not fix it anymore. They said something about the liability with the way that it's electrically wired is old school or something. Anyway, they will not work on it anymore. They suggested I find somebody out of Medford that will come up. So I had called Collins, and I was asking about their grant thing, and they happened to be reviewing the following day. That was the day we went to Christmas Valley. And so I did a midnight grant and got it in by 8 in the morning. And I haven't heard anything, but it was for the marquee. And the idea is to replace it with an e-board, with an electronic reader board. So, but it'll probably be about 15 to 20,000. So they'll probably just be a part of it, and then we'll get sponsors or something. Anyway, but so that's kind of in the works. So if you see it on and off, and that's why.
So what kind of time frame do you, before you'll, it's Colin McDonald is where you're.
Right. They don't really give you a time frame. They, basically it's when, they do it via phone, and so it's whenever the group can do a conference call. I was asking about that in case they.
Well, if you're gonna be, be a little facetious. If you're gonna be getting a hold of someone in Medford about this, Dave's gonna be bringing in a plumber from Medford, so maybe they'll work.
Good.
I'll send it out. That's what I'm
So,
Yeah, thanks.
so we could look, we would possibly see a request to the Board of Commissioners whenever you get your final budget and everything for this marquee sign, or possibly some dollars.
Maybe, I'm really trying to do it all through a grant and sponsorships,
That would be
so
awesome.
that it doesn't affect
Thank you.
my budget.
Let me tell you, that's the face of Lake County right there in the Lakeview area. The
Yeah.
sign there, Fort Vince and everything.
So, and really, I think that's about it for me, unless you guys have any questions. Just want to give you an update.
Did you have good reports? Thank you.
Oh, good, thanks.
So vendors will start showing up the Wednesday of fair, and the
Yeah, Wednesday
animals
night
will
or
start showing up
Thursday morning.
Thursday morning, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
We're good to go.
On the food vendors, we have a good Southeast Asian vendor.
Yeah,
Excellent.
okay.
Very
You
good,
done?
thanks,
Thank
Ronnie.
you.
Thank you, Ron.
I want to know what the new
Filled
ones
up.
are.
You what?
I want to know what the new vendors are.
One is Southwestern Clothing.
This one,
Southwestern Clothing.
the next time item is 9:30, so we have about 14 minutes to go for the presentation. Anybody want to go with Fish Creek Well? You're sitting here, Mike Taylor.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to elaborate on the Fish Creek Well subject?
The repeaters,
Yes.
for the repeater, yeah. There's a contract that we've had for a number of years with American Tower. And basically, it's a wash as far as expenses. American Tower pays Lake County $622 for placing the tower in Lake County property. And
That's a per year.
yes, and then in return, for the use of that tower, we pay American Tower $400 and some dollars. So basically, Lake County benefits by $200. And basically, that's it. It's just a contract that's renewed yearly, I believe.
Well, in the past, it was just a handshake deal that I discovered over learning about all this stuff. So it was just a kind of a handshake deal. Nothing was really in writing until now, until we've actually put it in writing and actually got an agreement now.
American Tower, is that the US Cellular one?
No, it used to be Verizon. Then they changed to American Tower.
This contract, I see this as ratification, is what it actually is. Has it been reviewed by legal counsel?
I haven't had it reviewed.
That was a Kodak moment back there. So, probably we should have this and legal counsel review this because contract. And we've already signed it actually, so we can ratify it tomorrow after. Contingent upon legal counsel's review, make sure being this handshake deal before, and this is putting it in writing.
Yeah, I started that ball rolling,
Did you?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, sometimes when you throw a bowling ball, sometimes you get a strike, sometimes you get a split.
well,
This is 7-10 split.
I didn't ask the sheriff about whether it had been reviewed by legal counsel or any of those things, so that's one of those moments.
Actually, this is my first time dealing with this, and so I received the contract from Daniel, and then my understanding, it was just you use our property, you use a tower, there's no charge, no cost, it's just a wash. That was my understanding.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that we benefit $200 from it. And I brought it to Commissioner Shawn and explained that to him. And with him believing what I was telling him at the time, he signed it, as did the other.
Well, and then I think two other commissioners signed it on that lead, so.
Yeah.
But it's just I think we just have legal counsel to make sure.
Same with us.
I watched too many MASH reruns and Radar brings it in, and I just signed it.
Radar O'Reilly,
Yeah.
that's the sheriff.
Okay, we're gonna cover that tomorrow, then. Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
We've got 10 minutes before the 9:30 public health. OLCC temporary use application, ratification.
This application was received from the Courthouse in Christmas Valley for an event. It's a music festival that's gonna occur on August 13th at Flowery Park. They wanted to be able to serve beer and wine. I did check with Under Sheriff Hobble for any issues. He didn't, he didn't have any problem with it. Long story short. And this is a ratification as well because it was very time sensitive for them to get it to OLCC for approval.
So I did my Arkansas legal proof of it. And there's
I'll move to ratify the application for temporary use of an annual license with Victoria Lambert, the Courthouse Bruce.
So we'll scratch it for what it is on the.
Yeah, that's just a question. Okay, go ahead, it's a simple thing. I'll second the motion. Motion seconded to accept the ratification of the OLCC temporary use application as stated. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Jail plumbing, Dave, in addition to our agenda today.
Thanks for coming out there.
Documents and everything. As you guys all know, we've had plumbing problems, well, for any of us who've been here. There's been a continuance of jail plumbing issues, and with this new remodel, we decided we needed to go above and beyond, and instead of just piecemealing it together all the time, and go ahead and fix it due to a lot of things. But anyway, I went out for a bid. I got one bid. We notified several other plumbing throughout Oregon, actually, and they all turned us down all but one. So I would like to move forward on the bid that I got from can't remember the name, I don't have it.
Card plumbing.
Yeah, Card Plumbing, and I'd like to move forward on that.
And this is mostly for the plumbing underneath the jail.
It's from all the wall, from all the lines, from sewer to charge lines to everything, from where they come out of the wall on the second floor up to the jail will all be replaced into each jail cell and kitchen and any water above us.
And then, Jeff, for the people in the audience, this building is constructed in the early 1950s, and we've had consistent problems with plumbing, especially in the jail and the store. We patchworked it a dozen times seemingly since I've been
More than that.
here. And this emphasis is just to not to patch the patches, but replace it all the time.
Everything will be replaced.
Well, and as bad as the water damage, the sewer damage is unacceptable with having our sheriff's department and community corrections directly under there. We've had a history of that and what that's done. As hard as it is to swallow on the cost of doing what we have to do, we have to do it.
We have.
And there is no other way. Card plumbing, I thought it was out of Medford, but I'm familiar with card plumbing or other plumbing.
But I do like the price tag, that's on the cover sheets, it's 52.000.
I ain't drawing back. That's pretty common with me.
But the labor and materials total is 52,000 actually.
So Dave, I'm just looking at this because this is the first time I've actually saw the spreadsheet on this. Have you got any other costs for concerns related to what it doesn't cover? Because it shows some things it doesn't cover this bid.
Yeah, no, when we walked through, he kind of explained all this to us, and it all made sense to me, made fit. But because we've already got hardware, we've already got all that. I don't have any.
Well, there's certain things in here just for discussion that I would assume we probably won't run into that shows it's not covered if we did, but I guess the asbestos abatement, the permits, they're gonna be what they are regardless, but I wouldn't think they're gonna be a great deal. Well, Jennifer's here, and I don't know if she has an idea, but just when we talk about total cost for this, concrete cutting and patching, I don't know.
Where we're at with that was part of it. If we was to remove any of the lines that has the asbestos in it, and at this time we're not. But if it comes to that, like I say, if something happens in there that we don't, the unseen or the unknown, then we have to take a look at that.
Okay. Okay.
But on the permits, it will require a permit, correct? And the county will cover the permit cost.
I'll come in, I'll get a permit.
We strive to take out permits for our own facility if we require the general public, we require it ourselves too. So that's for just, Commissioner Rogers, you got a point?
Well, all that's not included makes me fairly nervous, to be honest with you, because of that's almost like an open checkbook. Generally, we make them responsible for the permits. So, because it's their job, maybe the price will go up, but they need to pull the permits because they'll know what permits to get and all that, unless I'm mistaken.
Well, I'll let Jennifer go ahead.
The county can hold a permit, he's just gonna have to sign it and we'll have to check his
It's his
CCD
right.
license.
Okay,
So I mean, he's either gonna pull the permit and he's gonna charge us for that permit cost, or we're gonna pull the permit and we're gonna pay it up front.
okay, but if we pull the permit, does it lessen any of his responsibility after the fact that it's done?
But he's gonna sign that permit saying he's the contractor from beginning to end, I would think, is what your contract's gonna say.
If we're gonna spend this kind of money, we want him to be responsible afterwards and be able to go after his bonding and the whole
Yeah.
works, so.
I mean, he's gonna sign it as a licensed contractor doing the work.
As long as we're protected, asbestos, is any of the pipes up there?
Through the years, that's already been gone because it's been replaced and they pulled all that. There's no asbestos going up into the we're going to be done with
And we,
at this time.
our maintenance guys can do a certain level
Yes,
of
a certain level.
asbestos.
They can do
Asbestos.
3 foot by 3 foot a day.
So it says does not include any new fixtures, that's not, but it does include all the pipe.
Yes, this fixture, what they mean is like, 'cause we just put all new shower valves in there. That's what it doesn't include, is anything going like showers, faucets, any of that. We pretty much replace it.
So my next question is there a time frame if we award this, that they will have it done by?
Well, the only reason why they gave us a bid is because they're doing the Head Start building now. If they weren't doing that, they wouldn't give us a bid, they'll already be here doing Head Start. So while they're here, that's when they're gonna take on this.
Well, our
But I haven't,
Our experience shows if we award this, we need to put a time frame for it to be finished by, or else, and a penalty if they don't get it done by that time.
Right, that's part of the contract, because we can't put a contract together until we, get
So
patch all this out.
So
I have one.
on the, I'm carrying on with Commissioner Lynn. So bid price is good for 30 days, when does the 30-day start?
From the time from when you turned in the bid.
Because you said they're going to be doing a head start, so
Right, but if we accept, if
His price is good for 30 days as of, the date was July 27th.
as it's approved, now if we don't contact them, then we'd have to redo the bid again. Now, if you guys say, yeah, move forward, then I call them up and then the bid's good.
it just kind of makes that, we have head start, they'll tell them right there within a month.
Thank you.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, one last question, Dave. I know you're putting in sink and some different things, so this is all part of that.
No, the original bid from Ken Van Heusen is doing all the sinks and stuff. That was in the original bid from Remont.
So will that all tie into this new?
No, it won't tie in with it. Well, yeah, well, no, because it's a whole different, it's not even what they did on.
Okay.
So the sink to go someplace else.
No, Ken will still put the sinks that they're putting is in the new remodel, has nothing to do with the gel, what we're replacing all underneath the gel.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I didn't think you had the drain going out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Took out all the problems. I thought you might be putting it out of the lawn and water in the flower bed. This is not on tomorrow's agenda, it should be on tomorrow's for action.
However you want to do it.
Yeah, it was an addition for today, so it should probably carry on. Just a clarification, it says, replace plumbing below holding cells as well as much as possible in the chase areas in between holding cells. And what does that mean, Dave?
Well, right now, there's so much old plumbing in there that's, you can't even get in the closets to work on it. What they're gonna do is, and there's a lot that's not even charged, it's not even active. It's just through the years, they run new stuff, done stuff, take stuff out, but they never removed nothing when they did that. So between each closet, they're gonna take all that out and then they'll run PEX in there on the wall where you can get in there to make repairs. You can't even get in there right now. I mean, I can't even fit in there. So when Mike or anybody tries to get in there, even when the plumbers come, they can't get in there to repair.
Well, I guess my question is going to, we're trying to eliminate this problem upstairs that comes downstairs. And when they say as much as possible, that leads me to think that we may still have a place for potential failure if they're not able to do it all.
Well, it'll never be 100%. I mean, what they're saying is, they'll.
Yeah, what I got out of it when we talked about this before is they're gonna take out as much as possible to open that up. They're not going to leave leaking lines in there, they're gonna put in a new line for that area.
Right.
There's gonna be a lot of pipe removed, but it probably won't all be.
Right.
And for the audience, you should work back, that's the flexible hose
Yeah, it's just more easier to work with.
and expandable and so forth. Well, I'll put it on tomorrow's for action. Anything else, Commission? Thank you, Nate. And close to 9:30, Aaron.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
I am here for Beth Callaway, the Administrator of Public Health, to seek your approval to sign an RFP for Oregon Health Insurance to provide application assistance, renewal assistance for people qualified for the Oregon Health Plan. We've been doing this grant, it started with Cover Oregon about 3.5 years ago, 3 years ago, and every year it comes up for RFP. And it came up again, they increased the amount from $75,000 to $100,000 and we got grants, so Beth is asking for your approval to sign a contract, I think get a copy of that and get it back to Oregon Health Insurance.
On this 75 to 100,000, the additional,
They just give out base grants. Last year, the base grant was $75,000. That's what you had to apply for. This year, the base grant is $100,000. She did expand outreach a little bit on this grant to blind ladies, so it goes into Klamath County a little bit. That's still all of Lake County. But
Yeah, and Gilchrist too on this.
I don't believe Gilchrist is on there. That might be covered. I just heard her talking about blind ladies. Klamath
Yeah, I heard once upon a time you Gilchrist or Gilchrist.
Not that I'm aware of. It may be so, but we were gonna focus on blind ladies. because that was an area that wasn't covered by, the organization plan that was doing it.
But we coordinate with public health so that.
I don't know if public health is doing it. They have different organizations that they give the grants to. Open Door was doing it for a while, but they Open Door, the hospital. I'm not sure if Climate County Public Health ever did it.
Will we have it on for tomorrow for
Okay, I will let her know. She will be back tomorrow. Okay,
Thanks.
Thanks,
you.
Mary.
Mary, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Mary.
That covers everything that's on, except for the additions. We already got the jail plumbing. We got a few minutes before Melanie comes in for a lease. I'll start with the top one. Suggested these additions last week. The first one is the courthouse display. I had a gentleman ask, and I brought it up at an earlier session, but Commissioner Winter wasn't here, so it was just too close to the topic. But he was suggesting that we might consider placing a plaque that gives the preamble to the U.S. Constitution, or a plaque that gives the Bill of Rights, or both. And I'd just like to have a general discussion on that.
Go ahead. My general discussion is I totally favor that. When we talked about it the last time, and you're right, Commissioner Winters needed to be here to weigh in. And I'm prepared, whenever we have final discussion on this, to suggest that we work with Dave to make that happen.
I've had some discussion on this. I'm in full support of the preamble for both in our meeting area, or with a copy of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights available, say, in Denise's office, the full set, in case anybody asks. I know that Tim Harris has offered to the library. I think both of those smaller books are pretty reasonable, that we just have them available, full Constitution, Bill of Rights, and have a preamble in here. Would be my suggestion.
So have the preamble displayed and the Bill of Rights with the Constitution.
Yeah, it's available if the public ever asks. We have it on hand, or if the commissioner or anybody else wanted to review it, we have it.
I think that's a very good thing. Yeah, that's what the rights is, basically, as a nation.
It wouldn't hurt to have the Oregon Constitution also.
Yeah. So, Dave, can you come up with a very simple plaque that is the preamble to the U.S. Constitution?
How big a one?
I'll bet you'll work with Denise, and between the two of them, it'll happen.
Yeah. Something that's legible and eye-catching. And I agree with Commissioner Winters, having the Constitution and everything, and that prompted a few folks to think about it and ask if they really have it. I've not read the full Constitution myself. It wasn't written in Parkinese. Okay. Then we'll leave that off for tomorrow, since is that a consensus of those? Okay. And also had two individuals speak to me about some type of a display or monument or some way acknowledging first responders. That's sheriffs, EMS, etc., firefighters. We have the Veterans Monument out on the courthouse lawn. And I would just like to kind of have a general discussion where we might go with that.
I haven't put a whole lot of thought in that. First responders, are we talking for all agencies from law enforcement to ambulance to firefighters?
At least those three. Sheriff Taylor?
Sure.
First responders, firefighters, law enforcement, ambulance, EMS, et cetera. Who else would that be inclusive of?
I think that pretty much covers it.
I just did minutes on this yesterday, so when we talked about this before, we also talked about including, enforcement personnel from BLM or service.
Yeah, I think it's anybody in Lake County.
I would include them
and
in first responders, law enforcement.
Well, and that include the firefighter, I'd include everybody that falls into that regardless of agency or affiliation.
If the state firefighters, it's all inclusive. If the state law enforcement, it's all inclusive. So, but then,
Well, with that said, it sort of plays into it. Bill, I call him Sagebrush Bill, he was the plumber here for years. He actually brought in a flag that was flown over our nation's capital in remembrance of 9/11. And it has a letter and everything, and he wants it displayed here. I accepted and gave it to Denise to put the flag in the thing. But I guess the reason why I say that, if we had a place, just brainstorming out here in our foyer, where it was a smaller amount, but we had a place for first responders plaque to be there, and maybe for this to be displayed also. And we kept it in a very professional, smaller area, if that's the area, or another place, or if it's down pre-entry into the new sheriff's wing, or wherever. I think it would be fairly nice to have a very professional looking, maybe outlined with wood or something, for us to acknowledge those people. So just a thought, after the fact, Bill brought this in, and he was very passionate, and his story is quite touching, and it'd be nice to have it displayed also.
Or as you know, I think he came in and visited me because you weren't here that day, and I totally agree. I think for the board, it's just whether or not we want to do that, and I think I'm hearing we all want to do that whole combination of things. So we probably need to get, once again, it's not all on Dave, but Dave is the building manager and others to kind of get together and talk about where it would fit best, and we move that direction.
well, there's another aspect. One of the public suggested something out on the courthouse lawn. Do we want to entertain that concept?
I sort of myself, I think our Veterans Memorial is awesome out there, and I think our lawn's pretty nice and clean the way it is. I was thinking more internal, where it can be seen by people walking through and kept relatively small, but I'm open to ideas. That was my thoughts.
Well, and perhaps that is what a group of folks, a small group of folks could come back and recommend. It looks like it's gonna fit here in the courthouse, so no, it looks like it'd be better suited out near the Veterans
And
Memorial.
then it's the case of who do we identify as a small group?
Well, I definitely want Dave involved in that because he oversees all of the facilities.
So I like laying stuff on Dave's shoulders.
Well, he needs more people, and law enforcement, I would hope the sheriff could identify somebody to work in that group.
There's a local artist group or such, we might include one of them also.
From the cultural coalition or whatever, and six on that group, I think, don't you?
Yeah, the Arts Council might be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, Art County.
And let them come back to it, right?
Yeah, and they could reach out to the EMS group and see if they want to have someone. They could reach out to the agencies and see if the agencies want to have someone who would participate in the discussion. I would think that in a meeting, probably they could come up with a good recommendation that would really honor those.
The first aspect, I think all of us agree that we need something to acknowledge and then have a group that
Yeah.
come back with options.
Okay, so I'm good with basically you're forming a short-term committee to come back with a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners.
Yes, Dave is. I would like to have the sheriff, Bill.
Well, and the thing is, we probably should put some guidelines to Dave and the sheriff if they're going to, and I would assume Denise will probably be involved too, but it usually grows and the dollars get,
That was my next.
so we probably should put some guidelines that we will ask Dave to do. We'd like to keep it relatively reasonably cost
And options for raising money.
Well, and if we don't come up with guidelines, I'd like to recommend that whatever they come back with is a suggestion. If it isn't suitable, we give them guidelines.
whenever you start, when you start working on these things, people's passion gets,
I got it.
and the dollars can get pretty large.
Yeah.
Get that.
I fully agree. So Dave, you have full authority to recruit the sheriff and the arts council and maybe somebody from ambulance, whatever. But as brought up, there is a dollar. It could be something small inside, it could be something outside. If it's a big dollar amount, we need strategies for raising funds, whatever. So are you comfortable with heading up that team?
I would definitely have somebody from the town council or the town manager involved because of their law enforcement, they're the fire department, and they're also the EMS, at least the Lakeview area fire department have many other fire districts out there. So that sort of addresses that. What Bill has brought with the flag, it isn't something that can be displayed outside or anything, so.
That would have to be inside.
Yeah, so we might designate an area to do that. We have to be cautious because we can get a lot of things that.
We can be honest.
Yeah.
But the subject matter is, I think, the key point to keep in focus. Darwin, did you have a topic?
Well, I was just suggesting, and Brad mentioned the town council and the town possibly trying to contribute some of the funds at least, because some of them were, officials for the town when they may have passed, so.
How much you offer, we accept.
Yeah, I'm not offering anything as a council person, but I do, entertain that discussion and I'll bring it to the full council. But also I would suggest, the other interagency folks, beyond Forest Service.
Well, definitely, I think that's important. I'm not thinking so much about the money, but I'm thinking about the fact that I think the agencies would really enjoy and appreciate the opportunity to have a central place in Lake County where their organizations are to have that displayed on their behalf.
When you say central place in Lake County,
Well, yeah, not central in the land base, but central to the organizations themselves.
And we need to get a list of all the persons who have passed.
Yeah, well, each of those organizations probably have that ability.
But those other agencies probably have a whole lot longer list than what, the town or the county would have.
You can see how it's already growing.
Yeah,
and we haven't even got to the next topic.
I would mention those.
But- I know you got a workload on your shoulder, Dave, and I don't expect something by next week or anything. So to kind of keep us abreast and work with any three of us on committee members, but just be aware of anything can mushroom to be quite large. So we have to be reasonable and have to pay for it somehow. And part of the task is maybe soliciting options for grants and things of that nature.
Well, I'd like to recommend an update on the 20th of September. So that's not tomorrow. And the reality is, when we look at our schedule, I think that's the most reasonable early time.
I think Dave is gonna be off Elkhorn that week.
You can see I'm ready to do assistance.
And I'm not being facetious, I'm being serious. Was you taking that last week off for elk season with the boat?
No, I'm not taking no time off from going.
You already feel the tag out of season.
The 20th,
I'll be done by
the 20th is a work session of September. I'd like to just propose that we put that on the agenda for that work session for just an update on where we're at.
I'm very big on the veterans because they gave their lives. A lot of firemen and police officers and others give their lives also. And we need to acknowledge they're a critical structure in our society. Next topic I have is county mission statement.
We're ready for a 9:45.
9:45. Hey, Mel. I was getting ahead of myself. Dave, do you want to present?
You want me to start out because I was going to push this to
Yes.
Dave was talking about this addition this morning, and I said, well, Dave, we usually have whoever is going to rent our incubator building come before the whole board so we can ask questions and make sure that we agree on going into a contractual agreement. So I asked for him to get hold of Melanie, which is here, to come in and present to us today of their plans of renting the incubator building and what addition to our community of adding some jobs and the business to our community. So that's the reason why, and we want to try to get it done in a fast time frame. I hear afterwards you can talk to Melanie yourself. So, but anyways, we're here at 9:45 to hear what Melanie has to say. Is that pretty much covered?
Yeah, covered. Well, you're up.
Come on up, Mel.
All right.
And I have to say, Dave's not as focused today because he has a grandchild focused on the way. He's pretty wound up this morning about stuff.
Good.
Welcome, Melanie.
Hi, well, we mined obsidian out of Davis Creek. Many of the people in the building previous to us did the same, and we bought, the business from them last year. Last year we had 2 employees on, this year we have 4. And we just got approved for another load, so we need 4 more ASAP, so if you know if anyone looking for work, call me. But they also are looking to buy some sunstone claims as well. So we've been hiring locally, but we should have about 10 on staff by the time season goes. And we've got 6 months for mining, sunstone's a little longer. So we use the shop basically for security where we're at now. People are just walking through my property, picking up rock and taking off, so it'd be nice to have the comfort of the rock being in there, because we work very hard at it to get it out. We mine by hand, so it's not an easy job, so we would like to keep it instead of having it walk off, but we have employed, double from even last year.
So this would be a similar question when Jack's were there is, are you going to be using this site for cleaning the rock and that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's
We have the same wash racks,
the same
so
water?
we just put them back where they were.
Okay, and you'll keep that from
Oh yeah, we hose
Keep
the
it
shop
clean.
and everything down.
everything? And there's no hazardous because it's all natural, it's all organic, just washing dirt off and everything.
You have to be careful when you say all natural. Asbestos is also all natural, but this has no asbestos, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of, it comes from California, so it might be toxic, I'm not sure.
We don't mean to slang California, but concur.
I've been here 10
So-
years now.
And you would like for this, and the lease starts August 10th, so you're in a fast time frame to get going.
Yeah, we sent a load out this week and I just want to pay 6 months ahead on it.
With some emergency, I'm open to,
Yeah, I'd like to move forward. That sounds great. We really appreciate it, so.
I have written it down for tomorrow, and I just crossed it off for tomorrow. Gentlemen, I'd like to have a motion.
Move to approve the commercial lease between Lake County and Crane Mountain LLC as a tenant for 1254 South M Street.
I'll second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
It's pretty easy, huh?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was paint.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye guys, thank you.
Dave, do you just want to have her sign this?
Do you want
Yeah.
to sign it?
It's gonna be down at Brad here in just like 2 seconds.
So we need 2 copies.
But truly, the buck stops with you.
We have the second copy here.
No, just one. One original.
And Dave can make a copy.
I can.
Just here in session. We could take a break though.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll make a copy, I'll give you a copy.
Usually melon, but that's
Next item on the additional list is county vision statement. That should be also inclusive of the vision and mission statement and strategic plan. My understanding is that this county of Lake does not have a vision statement. A vision statement is kind of like a leadership statement. It gives what is our mission, our goals, and where we want to get to. And of course, the strategic plan gives you footwork of how to get there. It's basically, I brought this up a couple years ago, but the topic has always been in the back of my mind. And I'd like to have you look over the one from the Dalles. Can you give a little emphasis on how that can be beneficial to the county?
Well, the Dow's, Larry Reeder, with his new employment, has shared information with all of us. For some reason in my mind right now, remembering that one is more about their organization and how they build teamwork into, you know, how they get things done. I think there's a bigger mission statement and vision statement of what we're doing here to serve our citizens. And then there's also a, how do we get that done, like you said. So it depends, you know, the direction that you gentlemen want to go. I do feel like it'd be wonderful to have a mission statement that kind of reminds every employee of what we're doing here and why. And then also how we are benefiting our citizens. And that's what that's what we're here for. So it's just nice to have that in writing on paper so it can be looked at every now and then. Doesn't mean it's in concrete, it can change. But there's plenty of good examples. The town of Lakeview has a mission statement right on their website. So there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of ways to do this. Ginger brought back some really good information from a conference she went to where the speaker was talking about strategic plans for public organizations and looking at what they want to be in 20 years. You know, what are the issues we're going to face? What opportunities do we have? What do we start doing now to be there? That gentleman sounds like he's available and could come. I just think it's well worth the time and the resources to start thinking a little bit more long term. We have some great things. We have some great things on the horizon. We've had great things happen recently with the Ruby pipeline and the resources we have available. So I just feel like we need to just go a little bit extra step here and have some good discussion, some good strategy on what we want to look like in 20 years. How can we benefit our economics? How can we benefit our citizens? How can we stay viable?
And to give all the employees a common mission, a
Yes.
common emphasis to serve the people of Lake County. And we also could have this as a guidance in our budget process also.
Yes.
If we identify where we want to be and how do we get there both in our work emphasis and in our monetary budgetary emphasis and so forth. That doesn't mean you don't deviate from it for good cause.
Absolutely.
We have a mission statement of the building department.
Yes, and on the national that we should have one at the county level.
Well, we've talked about this a number of times over the last several years, and I agree. I think I would just want to say up front, individually, many people have had that longer term vision in discussions when we talk about whether it's monies or things we need to do. I think we had the vision, even though it wasn't written, in what we're doing here in this courthouse. We had the vision of what we needed to do in order to preserve a preservable building, if that's really a word. But the idea and the thought of actually formalizing something, and I really want to go back to something that was said right off the bat. And I think that would be a good place to start with all of our employees, is we need to remember as employees of the citizens of Lake County, we're here for one reason and one reason only, and that is to serve the citizens in the best manner possible. And that's a good reminder to each and every one of us. And to get that formalized and in everyone's hands, and actually start to live by that as a group would be wonderful.
I think you just nailed your mission statement. There it is.
Do you have the recorder on? Jimmy does. So I think it can be a lot simpler than what any one of us would think about when we talk about something like that. It's not overwhelming. It's just a decree to live by.
It could be a 30-page document, or it could be one page with 30 small items, or everything.
It has been talked about a lot, the vision statement that the Board of Commissioners might be, I think, to be relatively small, but we do have departments that have their own vision statements by department. We see it every year during budget. The strategic plan is a whole different separate discussion, but a vision statement can be basically, I agree, we're public servants, each and every employee of Lake County, and in the vision statement, we need to keep that first and foremost, and we're here to serve the public.
Well, the vision statement is the first statement, and then the mission can give some objectives.
Well, and I think
Strategic plan tells you how you're going to get there.
I think we could take it as far as to suggest, and this is the initial continuation of this discussion. I think we shouldn't lose it. I'm glad Commissioner Kessner had it added for today's discussion, but my letterhead can include our mission statement. Our reader board can include our mission statement. Dave, as he's doing all these other projects, maybe we can have that around in some visual places. I think we need to be reminded of that. Like I said, each and every day we come here, we're coming to serve the public. Yeah. So
we could make it pretty short.
Yeah.
Dan says.
Dan says.
But you guys in a public meeting.
Yeah.
Dan says with a caveat from Commissioner Winters, with a caveat from Commissioner Kessler.
There you go.
And whoever succeeds us, we're at their caveat. But it also gives an emphasis to whoever runs in 10 years, 20 years, a statement to them of why they should be running for county commission, or why an employee would apply for the job with the county commission, or with the county, and so forth. But the vision is the first statement, and then how do we get there? And that can be one page, or it can be 30 pages. But I would have a small committee to head it back, and I'm offering you that you can delegate to others to pull things together.
Okay.
Would you be willing?
I think, well, it's an opportunity for you gentlemen to pull together your department heads.
Yeah.
I think that's a better setting,
Yeah.
and actually a little bit more,
Yeah, we need all the
buy-in,
heads,
yes.
but we need one person to coordinate.
Okay.
Well, maybe we could start it as simply as if we agree on some context of what's been said here for our mission statement as a proposal, that at some meeting in the near future, when we're all gonna be present, we have a department head meeting, board of commissioners in a work session, share that vision, statement, see if there's any tweaking or agreement, if there's agreement, and then have the discussion. We all need to go away from that perhaps with the idea, how are we gonna meet that in each of our departments? And that would end up being our strategic plan, because it would be short-term and it would be long-term in nature.
Yeah, especially if you have discussions of what we think county issues might be in, a little bit longer term.
Yeah.
And it still might be some of the same issues that we.
Well, I think the board itself, since it deals with so many different areas, unlike a department might, could put another layer into that discussion as to probably more in the long term, because we might be more aware of things that not necessarily need to be done, but that are going to be issues in the future because of what we deal with.
Well, I agree with you. I think the staff meeting is a great opportunity to bring the department heads, elected officials together. Always believed in staff meetings, and if you have an agenda item, it makes those more productive. I think if we had the boilerplate vision statement, sort of like you put together, Dan, send it out to them an email and have a staff meeting and have a brainstorm, pull that together. I just think that starts building the reason why they would have ownership within the vision.
That's the key word, ownership.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just going to be a proposal for them to weigh in.
And
Get everybody to agree.
whenever we start talking about strategic plan and all that, we somewhat do that through our budgeting every year. At least I do think of the future and try to do reserves or whatever. If we get to further discussion on that also, I would want the budget committee to be part of that discussion so that they understood that we're trying to plan out further than just yearly budget. And because a lot of that has to do with our budget and trying to build a reserve or work with a vision of how we're going to, the three of us, we've always worked that way quite well. Whenever we do the remodels and stuff, it's for long-term savings for the county as a general rule. But put it in a plan is just not a bad idea.
And like I said, any plan would change as circumstances change. But at least every time we go to a budget meeting, we're not just looking at the forthcoming fiscal year, but we're looking at how do we get 20, 30 years out.
Well, and I think those strategic plans, you really start looking to it, like, what are the demographics of your citizens? What are they going to need in the future? Are we providing those services? Do we need to think about providing something differently? So it can.
It's everything from healthcare to law enforcement to transportation to communication.
A lot of this just doubles over to what the Board of Commissioners deal with through its SCOED, through its area committee on transportation. SCOED already has a lot of that information pulled together that we receive. It just hasn't been compiled and put out to our department heads and elected officials.
There hasn't been a county ownership. County-wide.
Well, and then you start looking at department heads, like even my department, in 20 years, are we gonna be dealing with checks anymore?
Yeah.
What does it do for our payment systems? How do we handle those things? So it's even, if you wanna go that far with thinking about how are we gonna provide services, what does it look like, and just start thinking about those things.
It's best to think ahead and be reactive. But when I say you in charge, we would pull together department heads. I'd like to have a central person just to take facilitator.
Okay.
So we're gonna leave this subject with no agreement on who's going to draft up the initial mission statement that's going to then be sent out by that unknown person. So it's,
The official mission statement was gonna have the department heads all come together formally.
well, I thought we were gonna kind of try and craft something out of what was said here today to send out for their comments and feelings about it, and then have a date certain where we actually have a department head, elected officials, get together to have a discussion about it.
I think that would be the most productive way to do it myself, I really do.
Whatever way, as long as we move in that direction.
I mean, we've got it on record what Dan said, so I think you've got your draft right there. We'll
Well,
start with that and you can
says-
fine tune it.
That's
The
what that,
We can get some variations, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ed. Next item added was roadmaster. I have a lot of inquiries on where we're going with roadmaster, whatever. And I'd just like to address that. We're all working on that. Jay, can you give us a little,
Commissioner, before we go there, can we take just a short break?
okay, short break, reconvene, okay, I'm sure.
Short break,
Yeah, I
Jay?
need a break.
Yeah.
6.5 minute break.
They won't be cutting in the instructional.
Before we reconvene, I'm down on this. Instead of the master will be at, what we're gonna do. I'd like to cover the two things that was brought up in the budget meeting that never fully got resolved. I don't expect us to resolve it today, but I'd like to know just where everybody's at with these two topics. Sheriff Taylor brought up in the budget the need for a deputy, and we haven't addressed that. And also nuisance and code enforcement, kind of a topic right now. I'd like for everybody just to be on the same page where we at in addressing those two topics. Sheriff Taylor, would you give a need of deputy? And also would like to say that we do not have budget enough to cover everything.
Well, if you don't mind, Commissioner, Sheriff, I'm gonna weigh in, because I do think for this year, we've dealt with the sheriff's request on the deputy. And that was to essentially say, not at this time. But that was part and parcel to the other part of this discussion, in setting aside money for the potential to have, as one option, somebody in law enforcement involved with the code enforcement. So I just wanted to be a little clear on my understanding of the budget and what we did decide at that moment in time based on your request.
Well, I wasn't of a full understanding because of whatever, so I'd like to make sure all of us are on the same page.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on the need of a deputy?
As I mentioned in the budget hearing, and I can go into the national statistics for deputies per capita, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna talk about the need and the residual effects that being understaffed and under manpower has on the deputies in Lake County Sheriff's Office. We are averaging anywhere from 40 to 60 hours overtime per deputy per month.
60 to
40 to 60. It fluctuates. Sometimes it on the lower end, it's anywhere in the high 30s, and sometimes in the higher end, it's in the 60 hours per month.
Just for clarification, is that for normal call-outs, or is that utilizing some of the overtime for seatbelt grants?
That has
Or marine or any of that?
That has no bearing on any grants that we have.
Okay, so.
That's just call-outs, that's shift extensions, that's requests at 3 o'clock in the morning that there's something going on that we are mandated, in my opinion, to send a deputy to.
Okay.
And some of the cases.
40 to 60 hours per month per employee.
Per month. I mean, like I say, at the high end, we're talking 60 hours. At the lower end, sometimes, it'll be 20, but, you average out over the 6 months that I did, and we're looking at anywhere from 40 to 60 hours. You're getting to a point of burnout, is right now there is no mandate that a deputy in their off-duty capacity even answer their telephone. They do it out of the goodness of their heart. They do it out of the commitment to the job and the commitment to the community and the people of the community. So when we call at 3 in the morning, they go. But there comes a time when they say, and we're experiencing it right now, mental anguish. I'm unable to do my job. I'm unable to do my job proficiently. I'm emotionally unable to do parts of my job. I'm hearing that. I don't want the overtime. The overtime is good, the paycheck looks good, but I want to spend time with my family. The barbecues that they're having, the anniversaries, birthdays for their children, they're not able to spend with those oftentimes. Sometimes they do. They make special arrangements. Even on their requests for holidays, they're being called out. You have a deputy in the North Lake that's tied up on a priority call. You have another priority call. Well, you can't sit. You got to call somebody out. It needs to be resolved right now. So you call somebody out who has taken a holiday, made plans with their family, and now those plans go to the wayside, and that deputy responds. They don't have to respond. They don't have to call. They can just say, the heck with it. I'm on a holiday. I'm not going. There's no mandated contractual issue that I have to abide by, but they do. And so we're seeing burnout, and we're seeing a desire not to have the overtime, but to have their time off with their family. That's my biggest justification that I can offer right now. Plus, the calls for service are so high. We get everything from a barking dog to my washing machine is not working. And I'm not kidding you. We get calls in the middle of the night that somebody has an issue that is non-police related issue. Of course, we don't send them out there, but still, it's a request for police service. We are everything to everybody, which we can no longer be. In fact, we are setting up a program on RMS, which is our report management system, to deal with some of these calls for service that do not require a deputy to go. For example, a vandalism complaint that has no suspect information, no physical evidence, and no witnesses. It's for insurance purposes only. Citizens can get on the portal, they can type out their own report, they can submit it. In the event that we have a suspect or evidence down the road, we can open up that case and investigate it. That will relieve the deputy from that one particular call. Hopefully it'll be hundreds of calls in a year, but it's not happening right now until we get it into place. Commissioner Shawn, I see that you're dying to ask questions.
Well, I've got about 4 or 5, but as I always do, I'll start with the facetious one. I thought it was going to just be between you and I about the Maytag repair call. I hit the wrong number that night. Sorry, Sheriff. I didn't know I would hear that here, but I appreciate what you're saying, and safety first. You know, our employees' well-being and safety first. I want to go back to the discussions in the budget meeting. This is one of the areas, and I want to talk about some things, and I'm just going to throw it out there. It doesn't mean I don't have feelings, doesn't mean I'm not concerned, doesn't mean I'm not hearing what you're saying.
Understood.
Commissioner Winters asked the question during the proceedings for budget, would this cut our overtime when you talk about the overtime amount? I remember the answer, I think, as being no.
No, it will not.
So we're not going to relieve in this process. We're not going to relieve that. I want to talk to you because I'm pretty passionate about this. I spent 32 years in the emergency service businesses myself, and you kind of sign on for that. I didn't have to answer the call either, and I can appreciate the fact our deputies do so, and they miss birthdays and anniversaries and all sorts of things. That is kind of the nature of the job. So I just want to throw that out there. It's not that I don't think we shouldn't do everything we can to get people their time off, and particularly with families and family events, but whether it's police services or firefighting, those emergency services, that's what we do. And we're not compensated by it in the sense of getting that time back, but it's built into those programs. Law enforcement and firefighters do receive benefits related to their future and their retirement and so on and so forth. So I just think there needs to be some additional information out there while we recognize the need to take care of our employees, which is what you're attempting to do as the sheriff of Lake County. I also think, as we talked about it in the earlier discussion around the fairgrounds, I think as we, and I've been privy to many discussions about our local area here in the south end of the county and call-outs related to our partnership with the town. I hope the improvements that can happen through the county and the town will lessen some of that load, because a lot of times you guys are the only ones that are responding to a lot of those calls that, are right here in town. So
I understand what you're saying.
I'll leave it at that, just for that.
And I have sacrificed for 35 years. I get it. We all get that. We signed on for it. We're more than willing to do that. But at what point do we sacrifice an individual's mental health for overtime pay? I don't think it's worth it.
Well, Sheriff, I'm going to go back to what I just alluded to. I would like the answer to be, yeah, these folks would be, it's not bothersome about the amount of money for the overtime pay. But if in your analysis, we're going to add a deputy, but we're not going to change that setting for the deputies, then what are we gaining? That's my question.
Well, my impression of what you're saying, Commissioner, is it's all within the dollar figure. Where are we going to save the overtime dollars?
Where are we going to save the time they're called out away from family activities and that mental stress on them if we say we're not going to cut back on overtime? That just happens to be the common denominator, is the overtime. The money's not. Money has to weigh into things we do. We're responsible for our spending, and we have to, unlike the federal government, live within our budget. So we do come back to that. But I'm more concerned if we're saying clearly, yes, it would be nice to add a deputy. It will help our program and the services we provide. But no, we're not going to change the work environment that our deputies are currently working in. They're going to still average 40 to 60 hours of overtime.
Well, I don't think they're going to average 40 to 60 hours in overtime each time. And let me put it in this perspective. The overtime is here. You add one deputy, the overtime to each deputy is going to go down here. You add a second deputy, it's going to go down there. The more deputies you add, the less you're going to be paying in overtime. One deputy is not going to make that big a deal in the cut in overtime. However, it is going to reduce overtime to a certain percentage. And whether that is call-outs for one deputy every week they get 2 days off. The following week they get 3 days off. And one of those 2 weeks, they're going to get called out 2 times. At a minimum. So what if that saves adding a deputy, let's just say hypothetically up in Christmas Valley, what if that saves 1 call out per week per deputy? That's going to be a significant advantage to them mentally and for their family. Let's face it, law enforcement is one of the highest in divorce rates. I'm guilty, I've been there. Law enforcement, and I'm not saying law enforcement caused it, but it has a big effect on families. And we got young families. And we're seeing some people going through divorces right now. And the people with the young families, it's affecting them. It's affecting their family life, it's affecting their children. And I'm thinking, you know what, again, and I understand the points that you're making, but my issue is this, it's not the money. And I understand we have to be cognizant of that. But what sacrifice do we put on these people and their families? Do we continue to say, you've had more deputies now than you ever had? Well, an 8 deputy deficit is nothing to be proud of. And seeing one person go through a divorce because of stress and emotional problems is shameful. And I understand that, Sheriff, what you're saying, Commissioner, but I think that we are looking at it in a different perspective. I'm looking at it from an emotional, mental health perspective. And I think that,
Well, I too am looking at it and listening to what you're saying, because you live it and you're in charge of the organization. Where I'm trying to get to is, are we going to change that? And based upon your answer during the budget committee meetings, the answer was no. So that's my question.
well, are we going to change the overtime cost with one deputy? No,
Well,
we're not.
and
We're going to
it's
change
not-
it a little bit, but not
No, it's not the cost. Let's forget the money. Let's concentrate on the hours worked. And that's what I keyed in on when we had that discussion. When Commissioner Winters, you correct me if I'm wrong, you did ask that question. And your answer was at that time, no, not the
And my
cost.
answer still is no.
Okay, so as you and I and all the rest of us strive to help their mental well-being, but they're gonna work the same amount. It's just not
No,
jiving.
either I'm not explaining it very well, or this is what I foresee. If we don't add anybody, things are gonna be status quo. If we add a deputy up in North Lake, if they're being called out on their days off once per week, and we can cut that, I believe we can cut that to once every 2 weeks, or maybe once every 3 weeks. I see us being able to cut one deputy being called out. Now, that doesn't mean another deputy is not going to get called out, but the rotation of call out is going to go from, instead of you and you and you, now we got one more person. You're going to get called out 33% less than you were. That's a significant.
And you said, you stated that earlier, so I started to really focus in on that. So the answer to the question from back in April is a little different.
Well, again, if you're talking about overtime costs and overtime costs alone, we will reduce it a little bit. But for the most part, we're not going to reduce
And
overtime
quite
costs.
honestly, for this discussion, I'm not that interested in the cost. I'm interested in the time that people are actually gonna get off. And you are describing a little different scenario than I remember during that, which is what needs to lead us to add positions.
Well, I have had a little bit more time too,
Sure.
to put some factual information
Yeah.
together.
And that's why we're having this discussion.
So I want to weigh in here on this. So it is a budgetary thing to be able to put another deputy on. It's not only the cost of the deputy, it's everything associated with the vehicle straight on to overtime. We've had that discussion during budget time, and we tried to, Commissioner Shannon tried to mold it into code enforcement / nuisance enforcement. We have the need. You've seen this Board of Commissioners be very supportive of you. We have a sergeant, we have an undersheriff, we have corporals in our jail. We've been very proactive. The truth of the matter is, your two budgets in the jail and the roadside eat up close to $3 million. That's total amount, basically, that we get on general fund property taxes.
But Commissioner, that's no different here than it is any other place in this country.
Absolutely, it's very expensive to do, but let me finish. So, you're talking by just relieving 1 or 2 calls, we're able to give our employees a little bit more better state of mind, mental health. Have you implemented a really good reserve program so they can take some of those calls and still relieve 1 call every 2 weeks? Is there other things that you can do to implement some things so that we can get some of that? Budgetary wise, we're trying to get there, trying to get you more deputies. And yes, we have through grants and everything over the years, we have been able to get a few more deputies.
Grants are up to our agency rather than being helpful to our.
But is there anything we can do during the interim, before now and budget time, that we can do to relieve some of that you're talking about today, about those deputies being called out extra? I think through our reserve, they're not fully loaded benefits and everything. It'd be less cost to have that reserve respond to that call than it would be a fully loaded deputy. And it will get to what you're talking about, of being able to help the mental health of your employees, if that's the case. That's a short term or something maybe even long term we can look at. Do we need to sit down with the town and say, okay, we're filling all these calls. I'll sit down with you, I've offered that, and say, we're going to have to start reducing these. The other thing is, what other impacts? This is almost exactly what I said was going to happen as the state started throwing money at adult probation and our mental health, is that our local enforcement is going to be overran. You're seeing a bunch more calls happening because we're trying to take care of those people in our communities. We're seeing thefts, we're seeing things that we haven't seen before. We're being impacted from the state level also. We gotta survive it, Sheriff, but we're gonna have to be creative too. I support more deputies, but it becomes a budgetary thing.
And I totally understand that. And let me address that in two perspectives. Number one is the reserve program. Let's be realistic about the reserve program. I am not comfortable putting a reserve out there, going to calls for domestic violence calls and violent situations where they go out maybe once a month for 8 hours at the most to handle this call. They are not trained, they are not prepared, they do not have the capacity to handle something like that. You get a reserve in a situation that hasn't been out there working on a consistent basis, and they get into a shoot, don't shoot situation, we're going to have one of two things. We're either going to have a dead reserve, or we're going to have a dead citizen, and there's going to be a unlawful or a willful death suit against the county. They are not trained to handle those kind of calls. Yes, we have a reserve program. They get a classroom maybe 2 hours a month. That is not, in my opinion, something that makes me comfortable to have a reserve go out there and handle calls for service. I can't do it in good conscience, and I won't do it. Because not only is it going to be a hazard to them, it's going to be a hazard to the community. They are extremely helpful in situations where we have parades. They can block off streets. They go out right along with a full-time deputy, but they're not prepared. I don't care whether they've been here 20 years as a reserve. They are not prepared. Maybe the only person that is a reserve right now prepared to go out there and do that is Junior Gabriel. And the only reason Junior is because he was a full-time law enforcement officer for some time. The grants are killing us. We have a grant for the sand dunes. What good, and I think I mentioned this in our budget meeting too, what good does it do the citizens? And we just sat here and we said, what is the most important thing that we can do in a mission statement? Our citizens of Lake County, we're here to serve them. Well, what good does it do sending a deputy out there in the sand dunes or right around on a rail when another citizen needs a deputy for a domestic violence? She's getting the snot knocked out of her. It doesn't do any good. But we are required, because of that grant, to spend time up there in those sand dunes. Daniel, the OEM, he's 60% covered by OEM, 40% something else. What good does it do Daniel to be out there on the boat in Marine Patrol, checking the fourth boat for the fourth day in a row to see if they got a driver's, or see if they got a fishing license? When out on the west side, there's somebody that's been involved in a crash, and there's nobody to respond. It doesn't do the citizens any good. So we have mandates based on those grants that we have to comply with. And I am not going to falsify information to get that money for the grant. I will not do that. So we have these mandates. We have to do this. We have to do that. We have to do the ATV. So where are our deputies? They're out on the lakes. They're out on the sand dunes. They're out there running around on quads. It doesn't do the citizens of Lake County any good. It's just a resource to give the county and sheriff's office money that we cannot afford to have. And I'm not barking at you guys. I'm passionate about this. I really am. I'm seeing some good people suffering, and I know your hands are tied. And I'm compassionate with you about that. You have a hard job to do. You have to manage this budget. But I've got a tough job to do too. And one of my responsibilities is to the deputies in which serve for this country. And their mental health and their family lives are just as important, if not more important, than their jobs here for the community.
We commonly state that we care for our employees, but we don't always show that respectfully across the board. Family is part of the family of a sheriff is part of our community also. So I greatly respect that. The aspect of reserve, I was a reserve police officer in Oak Ridge for 7 years, and I fully agree. They are not one that would respond to domestic violence. The domestic violence is critical in the situation. As far as people having.
But that's not the only call after hours, no.
Maytag repairs.
Well,
the most
my
part-
Maytag is in need of repair too. I have a ceiling fan in need of repair too.
The calls in the hours of darkness are usually calls of violence. Because those are the times that people get off work, they start getting sauce, they start arguing, and pretty soon the fight's on. Now, whether it's domestic related, whether it's community related, whether it's neighbor related, they're violent calls. And I don't feel comfortable putting a reserve out there on night.
Put them on during the day and put your other guys on at night.
Okay, the problem with that is our reserves have jobs. They can't give up their primary job to come volunteer for us.
I think we're all debating things just to debate. We're very supportive of our law enforcement. We're very supportive of the families and whole values. It comes down to being able to fund these positions fully and put them out there, Sheriff. And I know you hate hearing that it's dollar driven, but it truly is dollar driven. And if I took a card out of Congressman Walden's playbook, it would show me the offsets. Because of whenever we're going to jump to another level with the Sheriff's Department, if we're going to have 1 or 8 deputies, we have to cut someplace else, whether it's reserves, whether it's contingency, or another department. So it is about money, along with trying to manage and do the best we can for our employees. There is not one of us sitting here that doesn't want the very best for our employees.
And there's no question in my mind that that is the truth. I'm just trying to justify to the commissioners a need for another deputy. I'm not putting this burden on your shoulders. You are the ones that have to determine where the money comes from. If there's no money in the budget to support that, I get it. But I'm not asking you to do anything that's going to cause, financial issues to the county. I'm just saying this is justification for a new deputy, or an additional deputy.
And that's where a county vision, a county mission statement, and a strategic plan to meet those vision. The vision is a goal. The vision is a goal. The mission statement is objectives, and the strategic plan tells you how to get there.
I believe that I sent all the commissioners way back then, March of 2015, we have a policy, it's a Bible of the Lake County Sheriff's Office, as you know. It's the mission, vision, and core values. It's the policy in which we live by. I provided a copy of that to Ham. And it is specifically mission-driven, value-driven, and what are the Lake County Sheriff's deputies' core values? It's to the needs of the citizens of the community.
That's where I'm getting at with a county having a vision that would dovetail all the others. But I haven't had a vacation in probably 4 or 5 years. The only reason I don't burn out is my upbringing. But not everybody has the same upbringing I have, and I respect that.
But on the flip side of the coin too, and I respect that, Commissioner, your normal person is not going out and handling and seeing the ugliness that these deputies are seeing on a daily basis. It's not normal to see a person that's been decapitated in a car crash, and then you have to go home and play with your children. That's just not normal. And this is what these guys are dealing with. Maybe not to that degree every time, but they're seeing some very, very ugly things out there that they have to deal with. And then they get called out on their day off to go deal with more of it. Then they gotta take it home and deal with their family.
We deal with 90% of the population, and the law enforcement deals with 10%. That has been seated in my mind for many, many years, because I worked with law enforcement in my career. Is that, as you say, they see the ugly part, and then they have to bring it home to the family. Not a separation there. I respect that.
And commissioners, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, please don't, I'm not trying to be, like I say, I'm passionate about what I do. And the mental welfare and the well-being of my personnel.
Well, I think somewhat, now I'll speak for myself, Sheriff, that you might see my frustration when we have a discussion like this is our I'll call it inability. Commissioner Winters was correct, as much as I was trying to get away from the money part and just have the other discussion, is our frustration with not being able, because we do care, to be able to see a financial means that's sustainable to support you and what you're seeing as needs for the services that you're trying to provide, both to the community and to your employees. And it's frustrating to sit here and think about that. I mean, we're gonna have a little bit of discussion on nuisance, and granted, that's not necessarily a life-threatening thing, but it's trying to, it's this whole discussion about the mission statement, provide our services to all of our community members, whether they're coming in the courthouse or they're just out there trying to live their lives. And that does weigh on you as, you know, you have a limited amount of means to provide all the different things that our citizens deserve and you want from them. And you have to make decisions. And I know you know that. I know you appreciate that. And so we just need to continue to work at this together to see what we can do, what is feasible, what's, and it's not just feasible because we also had that discussion for this next year. What is long-term feasible? So that as in your work, whatever we do, it's not jerked out from underneath you, you know, at a later date that we can't afford that anymore. We can't do this, we can't do that. And it all comes back to setting priorities and working within the means that we have.
And that's why I brought up the section integration and strategic plan. That would give us a priority where we put our financial abilities.
You know, I have to give Under Sheriff Hall a lot of thanks and appreciation, respect for the job that he does with managing our budget. He does an exceptional job. And as you have seen for the last 2 years, we have been very, very fiscally responsible. I believe for the budget year of 2014-15, we returned $90,000. And I believe for this last budget year, we returned $156,000. So we are doing or trying to do our part in showing you fiscal responsibility where we can cut in certain areas to help get the costs, save the costs for a new deputy too. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to skim so thin that we do get that extra deputy and now we can't provide them with the equipment, training, and the other necessities they need to do their job. My whole point even bringing this up is that we are trying to save money too to help you make that decision. And Under Sheriff Powell has done an incredible job doing that.
Thank you, Paul.
No, that's pretty well documented. I think in my going on 10 years that Under Sheriff Hall has done, starting with the jail, a tremendous job, financially and otherwise, the facility, the whole works. So yeah, the only thing, just a quick comment.
I don't know if he has or not. I questioned him on
I know.
an $80 purchase and he had the answer right away. I'm not sure he does a good job or not. Yes, thank you, Paul, very much. I'm very much aware of your skills and ability.
I think the beauty of working together as a community in several areas, and the sheriff's department's one of the key areas, is also, you know, since we're talking about savings and ponying up monies for different things that come unexpectedly, you know, I think the board, and I know you know that and you support it, it's not about us, but like our communication. You want to comment on that already? No. Our communication network that we kind of out of the blue, you know, needed to come up with what, 25,000 or something. You know, that's partner. I mean, that's a partnership. And we don't question it usually, we want to understand it, but if we have the means, we just do it. And, because if you make a request and say it's needed, it happens. But I do want to comment, because you and I talked a little bit about the 90 and 150,000 plus. It didn't really register to me then, because I was thinking, well, you know, without skimping, but if we could kind of project that built into that budget is the ability to do that and still provide the service, the safety, the training, and everything else. The only thing that's kind of the misnomer that Ann's here, she could correct me if I'm wrong on my assumption here, is then they'll be starting as a county in our general fund with less money, you know, on an annual basis. If we were to average that out, say it's 120 grand and we put in a few more dollars, well, that's going to be less what we start the year out with. So those savings, while appreciated, are instrumental in our beginning fund balance, our cash carry forward, and everything else. So,
Sheriff, what he's saying there is we factor in every year that you are going to save some money. We anticipate that because
Well, we'll just have to start spending it.
we don't, but it's a good track record, like we've been
Yeah.
saying. Under Sheriff Hobble has watched that and helped out with that for years. So we do anticipate those savings. And
We do want to get back to the years whenever we had to ask everybody to do a 10% reduction of their budget. We've done some excellent budgeting over the years as a whole as the county, and we do project and try to make sure we have that beginning fund balance. When it flops, it's the other way, and you have to reduce by 10%, or you have to reduce personnel. It is not much fun. And that's one way that we've continued to budget, is try to make sure that we have a little bit of a cushion. It's not a savings account, it's for the what ifs. We don't even know what when we go to digital, we went from narrowband to broadband or whatever backwards of what I said there. The costs that come in, I mean, we try to keep a little bit there for the unforeseen, but whenever you do save money, Paul saves money in the budget, it doesn't just mysteriously disappear. It's general fund operations as a whole. And so having that beginning fund balance, unappropriated ending fund balance, is really important, so we don't have to start out reducing. And I've been here whenever we've been in that situation, and it is not much fun. I see Ronnie shaking her head. She was in the business department or the financial department. Ann was back in the days too. It was, every expenditure was approved of $500 or more was approved by the board. And I just don't want to go back to those days.
We may well go back unless we have a plan. And I wanted to keep on the board because you brought it up in planning. Commissioner Shannon offered to it, and I just can't remember that. We need to keep it on the table. We don't have it in this year. But when we come up with a strategic plan, what is our priorities? Public safety is always a priority. And how do we address it?
Just have one more thing to say, then I'll be done in a minute. The commissioners, all three of you, have been very good to the sheriff's office, and me in general. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate everything that you have done for the sheriff's office and me over my tenure of being here. That's not going overlooked. But I do have a responsibility to try to take care of my department the best I can. So,
And we have a responsibility to take care of all of our employees.
agreed.
and also, just real quick, say thank you and all of the deputies for this past weekend up in Paisley during the mosquito festival. You did a wonderful job. The community was well taken care of, and it wasn't overbearing. People moved freely and had a great time, but they also knew that county law enforcement was there to take care of anything that might need to be taken care of.
And I was there for the duck tank, but they decided not to have it this year. And my bar so
All right.
Thanks, Commissioner. Next year. The next topic I had on nuisance and code enforcement, that's kind of out there, it's been out there for a long time. I'd just like to have a discussion amongst folks, where we at with that, so the public knows, because they're inquiring, and see where we can go to address that in some fashion. Again, that has a cost factor on it also. No?
I've had many discussions with each of you offline, outside of this meeting as a body. The nuisance has been on the rise, at least on the complaint basis. Not all of them have been brought to you guys because of a lot of incomplete information from those who are concerned with the way, you know, their neighborhood may look. We do our best to provide those who have complaints with the information, not just on nuisances, but also zoning and building codes. And that information is on our website, and as well as the nuisance ordinance and the form that we direct people to fill out, along with photo evidence of what the problem may be. In some of our discussions, last time we had a meeting on this, and Carl Shumway was in the room. I waited for him to leave to kind of voice a lot of my opinions. Those opinions haven't changed. I am certainly one who along with what the sheriff had said, we have a responsibility to serve the public. And a lot of what I'm seeing is neighborhood, complaints about other individuals who for whatever reason, there is those who come to our community who don't have the means to live in a way that may be up to the standards that is required by building codes or land use. And we have cheap land in this county, very cheap land, and that's not going to change overnight. It's not going to change anytime in the near future. And that attracts a lot of people who may be leaving a different community who don't have the means to and don't have the understanding of what it takes to really develop a piece of property to a level or to maintain said property to a level that is really in the best interest of the whole community, and to a level that isn't maybe an eyesore to many who also are in the area or who have lived in the area for some time. Carl Shumway, brought up, and we visited Christmas Valley and looked at many properties that, in my opinion, as planning director, were not violations of the land use code or building code or even nuisance. That's my opinion, having spent 5+ years now in our ordinances, every day reading them, and thankfully having a way to do a word search and find where parking or camping on your property, your recreational vehicle or your things is in violation of our ordinance. Carl stated that he felt that it was a violation of our land use policies. I absolutely do not feel that way, that parking your personal vehicles or even your personal belongings on a piece of property is in violation of our land use ordinance. Now, if that sentiment and opinion needs to change on a county-wide basis, then we can initiate a land use ordinance change to our zoning ordinance and policies in which we want to regulate. However, we have to be careful with what we want to put in our ordinance, because the more we're restrictive to people, the more I find that we get a lot of disgruntled citizens and those who just do not appreciate, for one, the Oregon land use system, because it's very restrictive, more than most any other state. And we can go into that, but we won't right now. But for this purpose, I I tend to agree with you guys on that we have to look at the money. I mean, the bottom line is, how are we going to fund a program in which we are trying to make, yes, our communities more attractive to business, more attractive and livable for those who live in the communities in which they are, contributing to that area. But we also have to be fiscally responsible. For me, this comes down to that, and the amount of time that we're going to spend on something that I feel is a no-win budgetarily for something that you're going to constantly be spending resources trying to enforce, really minor issues. I mean, some of the examples were a boat or camper or a vehicle left on a piece of property. And to me, each of those, I gave you yesterday a nuisance complaint about tall weeds, and that fire hazard that is addressed in our nuisance ordinance. That can certainly be a concern, and I understand that full well, that no one would want their family's life in jeopardy because of a fire hazard. I've never seen tall grass or weeds just go up in flames.
That one hits both, not only the tall weeds, but it's noxious weeds also.
Yeah, noxious weeds as well. So there may be other, we need to look at other agencies who may be able to assist us in this program, especially when we talk about how much time just went into yesterday. I spent all day yesterday on this topic, and came to this meeting a little early, and a lot of the things related to this overall picture of what we're trying to do here. But I would tell you, it's on the rise. Certainly I think that has a lot to do with the reporting of it by the paper. That during the budget time it was discussed, and we are trying to do more about it. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes at a cost that I don't necessarily see the full benefit for, I'm really left to you guys for coming up with a good vision and way to handle this, because the nuisance wasn't on my job description when I got here. Neither were probably 4 or 5 other different things that have been added to my workload. But land use planning seems to be, probably 25% of what I'm doing now, it feels like. Nuisance is more like 50 to 75%, along with land, addressing and GIS that I'm doing a lot of, land sale, things like that are taking up a lot more of my time. And when we've got major land use projects, I need to be focusing my time on those. And when I'm getting, overloaded with nuisance complaints and then need to come to more public meetings to rehash over these things, it really has taken a lot of the time that I hope we can get to a conclusion. I'm willing to serve in any way I can, and direct staff, the 3 of us in the building planning, surveying, and on-site program, we're all working together to try to get the information out there and to see that our communities are, and the codes are in compliance, and that people respect those and are trying to get the education that they need. Because I think that there's so much misinformation being shared by those outside the community. When it comes to realtors and things like that explain that, you can just do whatever you want in Christmas Valley. And, this is not a new issue either. I mean, and I don't mean to just single out Christmas Valley. We certainly got a lot of issues close to Lakeview here that need to be addressed. And we've talked about addressing the most major ones as well, but that's why we've always had to file a complaint instead of us initiating that. I certainly don't have the time to go and initiate.
Well, the fact of the matter is we have an outdated ordinance, but we do have an ordinance that isn't enforced at hardly any level at all right now. We have let and had it land into the planning department and created the forms. today we're at that next level because there's been some interest, commissioners have worked on it. We have the need, if you go around all of Lake County, south end, north end, all around, we have a need for enforcement out there. We put the burden on your department at a smaller level. First thing we need to do is look at our ordinance, update it if necessary. And another thing is we have to be able to stand behind that ordinance and enforce it. And to enforcement, it's not only the person to do it, but it's the cost of cleaning up. Your ordinances are only as good as enforcement of it. And we're at that process today, that middle road where there is becoming quite a demand, not only on the departments, but onto the Board of Commissioners, is you have an ordinance to do something, because we are seeing it across full time. So I do not have the answer. The first shot, and this gets right into where the law enforcement side come in during budget time, Commissioner Schown comes up with a conceptual thought of combining law enforcement and code / nuisance / whatever enforcement, including a little bit of animal control possibly. That was just conceptual thoughts, some money put aside there. But we're going to have to prioritize as Board of Commissioners if we're going to leverage that little bit of money that was put there. Are we going to do code enforcement? Are we going to do nuisance enforcement? Are we going to put some towards law enforcement? Are we just going to sort of wait until this next budget year? But there's a need for both. And I tell you, as a commissioner, getting a lot of pressure on the nuisance side. You go down to, I think it's 11th Street, and it looks like that there's
10th and Hill.
Okay, is it 10th? 10th Street, 11th? No, it's 11th Street, the one I'm talking about. Yeah, it looks like all those vehicles from the county foreclosed property have ended up there. I've heard rumors that it was the town that enforced some cleanup within town, and they ended up in the county side. So we have some real issues going on out there.
As Commissioner Women said, the emphasis is growing, and we have different priorities. We don't have a plan, so that's why I want to keep things on the table. There is nuisance, and I've been saying for years we need to relook at our nuisance ordinance. There's something in there about barbed wire being 4 inches or something. What applicability is that? But we need a little teeth, but then we have to have the resources to enforce the teeth. Code and zoning, concur with you. A lot of them reach out zoning and code, not really, even though some people might argue. But if we do have some obvious violation in our code or our zoning, we need to prioritize them and address those. If we don't keep the topic on the table that the sheriff department needs and the planning building, that's why it's on the agenda today. We need to keep it on the table and look at strategies, strategic plans, how we're going to meet those needs for the public. But on code and zoning, if there are some obvious, I'm a strong believer, if you have rules and don't enforce them because for whatever reason, it's a slap in the face to the public that we say we serve. We either need to modify the codes or rules, or we need to enforce them if they're obvious. And you can't enforce them all, but we can prioritize the most blatant ones and address those.
I don't think we can modify the code because we go by the state code and rules on that.
Yeah.
The only thing we can really modify is our ordinance for local laws.
That's where we can modify our zoning.
Unless I'm wrong,
But we don't want to go there. But just what I'm saying is, if we have some blatant, we have more violations than what we may know, but if we have some very blatant, we need a strategy to address it. And we do not have a strategy to address it. But I'm sure that county commissioners working with our sheriff and our planning and building, we will come up with a strategy.
It sounds like that plumbing issue is going to get tabled. We're going to throw that money at something else.
No.
I'm just kidding. It sort of all rolls down.
My water heater has more priority than.
Well, so let me just kind of capture what you and I talked about yesterday, and I'm gonna do it in a visual. Here's Lake County land base, and my belief is, I don't wanna throw percentages, because I don't know, but a good chunk of it is not an issue. Then there's a fairly good chunk of it, as we found going to Christmas Valley, that had to do with land use that I'm interested in, I'm concerned about, but it's not a hot topic to me. And then there's the true nuisance. And we all drive around throughout the county and we see that. And to be honest with you, when I, at the 11th hour, talked to the sheriff and then brought before the full budget committee, the whole notion of just putting a placeholder in there, not any plan, as has been alluded to, but to start to move that direction for the years of meetings that we've had where people have came in and said, these dogs are running at large, we can't walk down the street, we can't do this, we can't do that. The weeds, there's a pretty good weed program in the county in general, based upon some real good organizations. And then the nuisances themselves that deal with health and safety, that they go beyond my beliefs as an individual person as to what, the respect for people's rights on land, on their own land, is just, it's here. And people putting their own values on what they believe someone should have or shouldn't have. Right now, I don't even want to have those discussions. I only want to discuss the animal control so that, people do feel safe in all the communities. And this true health and safety issue, the ones that, whether we drive down south of town or we drive up north in the county, that we see, it's not the majority of the land. And so it's complicated and it's difficult. I appreciated what you said about people with our low land values currently, and I honestly believe we're going to see an increase in that sooner than later. But even with that said, anybody, no matter what their means are, they don't need to turn it into another landfill. There's no reason for that, no matter what their means are. And that's not putting my values on them. It's just simply saying, be respectful, number one, and no one should have to wonder if there's rats coming out of all your trash that you've thrown everywhere. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the trailers that, I can appreciate what Carl's saying, in our meeting up there, but I want to tackle the real problems, the real true problems. And
that's probably,
yeah, you and I talked about that.
And that's why, I think we have the means now to continue a program that's complaint driven, that, as much work as that's gonna entail, it's fine, we can manage that. But I absolutely, it needs to be health and safety first, and, eventually the blight and the eyesores because of a camper, or a boat or something that's been left there forever and no one's even occupying or been to it in years, things like that we will eventually be able to get to. But I'm definitely, I don't want to see us throwing away money on a bunch of cleanup projects that are not in the public's best interest. If we want to talk about a camper or boat being there and spending a couple $1,000 getting things removed and all the office time it's going to take to do this, we'd be way better off spent, sending money towards the sheriff's department and getting more, people in the community to show that, hey, we do care about this community. We want to make sure that the law is being enforced and that people are not just up there doing everything that they want to.
Well, we have a need, we need to fund it, we need to know where it's going to land at. We're there. This whole board knows, I agree with you that right now the priority is the animal control for safety, the nuisance, the health and welfare. I agree with everything you said there. We have to get past knowing that we need that. We have to get to where is it going to land? How are we going to fund it? Who's in charge?
that's why I put it on.
That's, we can talk about it all day long,
Yeah.
but we're there.
But to me, some of the nuisance stuff, as much as nobody wants to deal with it, I don't feel like it should just be complaint driven. I think that the county itself needs to send out a letter to every single resident in the county and say, clean up your stuff. I mean, that place down on East Street is horrific, and people have complained about that and complained about it, and they're sick and complaining. Because unfortunately, like you said, we don't have the resources to clean it up, but I don't know if there's some way we can
We agree,
offer.
we need that nuisance enforcement person to put that burden on to go out and make those additional contacts.
Yeah.
Jennifer, right now, you just heard from Darwin, we've done a small amount, and we've elected to go with, you give us a complaint in writing, we will address it. That's because we don't have somebody to drive around all day long and go talk to these people or send out those letters. You're exactly right. That's what
Well, right
we need
now,
to
we
be
can
able
do
to
our due diligence of sending everybody in the county a letter and say, let's help the community. Let's help each other out. Let's clean this up.
Well,
Just get it in everybody's mind to look around their own place and clean up some junk.
Well, I agree with you. We have to have a trigger whenever, because of just having these few meetings we have, we already have people that expect us to address things. And as soon as we send out the letters we're talking about, I agree with you. We have to have something so we address it when the complaints come to us. Because the last thing I want to do is be sitting here is, well, you sent out the letter, but you're not sitting there ready to do anything about it. And that is real, that's what happens.
that backfires on you.
Yeah, well, and I think, Commissioner, you're hitting on why this got brought up during the spring. Because Jennifer, I totally agree with you, and I talked to Darwin about that yesterday. Doesn't mean we can't still have complaints, written complaints from people, but the whole notion was to be proactive and not have it complaint driven. Because a lot of people are fearful of their neighbor when they turn in a complaint. And we have an ordinance on nuisance, and if we just went and directed, as Commissioner Miller just alluded to, we can get to where we need to get, which is having someone identify that that's part of their job, is going and doing that. And I mean, but it's a more focused part. It's not a Darwin Johnson as a planning director part. It's what we budgeted for, you might say, that we're going to start getting rid of some of those problems and honoring our citizens in our community so that we have a community that we can all be proud of.
We get there by having a plan. We get to the public safety with the deputies by having a plan.
Yeah, I mean, I know the code enforcement guy in Klamath, there's many places that he goes and gets a deputy to go with him because he won't go.
There's some situation that, that's where the deputy actually has to play in nuisance, is the backup for hazardous situations.
Yeah.
But we have public safety, we have sheriff's deputy burnout.
Yeah.
That concerns me.
Yeah.
A quick pull of the trigger because you're stressed is not a good scenario. We see it too often. But nuisance, it's community pride, and we have to do some work to get that step moving so that the pride would be contagious and would follow suit.
Yeah.
Paul.
I think that there's a little bit of confusion on the enforcement side of the code enforcement stuff. I think that there's lots of levels of notices that can be given to the public that you're not in compliance long before penalty phases affect. And law enforcement isn't, and I feel like it keeps running back that direction, but at the end of the day, it's an enforcement body. And whether that lives in planning or whether that lives in with the Board of Commissioners, that's the enforcement body. And so if they have the authority to issue a citation to an individual to enforce penalty, then it doesn't have to come with a badge per se. Now, worst case scenarios, when you're getting physically removing bodies from a property, law enforcement would get involved because that would be part of more down their road of enforcement as opposed to Darwin going and physically dragging somebody off their property. But there's many, many steps that need to occur prior to dragging somebody off their property, and and crushing their house or burning it down or removing it from property. And so I think that it's very important that we address that, because the sheriff already alluded that we don't have the resources to handle emergent calls on a day-to-day basis, nor do we have what Commissioner Winter said is somebody to drive around and do nothing but go door to door to door and say, I need you to move this car off your property, or you need to get rid of this camp trailer that's been sitting here for 10 years. And so I think that there's two different levels of enforcement there, and one of them would be law enforcement driven and helped. But the other body of that, I believe, is more of a leg job where you're giving written stuff, or maybe having face-to-face communication, but it's not so much I'm taking your liberty and freedom away and hauling you to jail. That's not per se what you're going to be doing for code enforcement.
So Paul, we chatted at great length, you and the sheriff and I, a few months back. And this is where, and I just throw it out there. I offer it up as one commissioner in this process. And I know we don't agree, but I'm sitting here even as you're talking about that, and I'm thinking, well, if we added a sheriff deputy / code enforcement, would there not be, it doesn't answer the sheriff's question and address it completely on the overall relief of the existing deputies and the enforcement activities that go on. But you got it all in one. And you're right, the initial contacts and some of the early follow-ups don't have to have a badge and certification. But if you had that position blended in to do all those facets, the ability to do them, you're out about to stop at somebody's house, the trash, which is as deep as this is or deeper in the yard, and it's starting to roll out into the county roadway. And you get a call, an emergency call for an automobile crash, and that particular deputized person is the closest responder. They don't stop there, they go do that. It's just one more tool, and granted, it's not full-time, it can't get into the regular rotation, but it's another part of the tool, and at the same time, we're meeting some of our other needs in the county. Now, that's asking a lot in some respects, and it's not answering the ultimate ask from the sheriff's department, but maybe it's the best blend when we do start to factor in the other factor, which is financial, and our ability to financially do this. It kind of hits at what Darwin's saying. We're not specifically funding a nuisance code enforcement position and spending all those dollars on that while the sheriff goes wanting the sheriff's department. And so that was my whole mindset. And honestly, I can't get away from that, knowing the financial part. We don't have the means to do both right now, in my opinion. So
I don't think it's a bad idea at all, especially when you explain it that way, is that it would give some relief to the sheriff's department on certain types of calls. It would start on the nuisance side of it. The one component of that is all the pre-work that Paul talks about. It's sitting out, it's preparing all the stuff, office work that needs to be done. Is one part, be tough.
well, it's one possible way to go, but it's not the way to go. And Paul's gonna.
So with that being said, I feel like it's very similar to what the sheriff addressed with our grant positions. So we got creative a number of years back, and there was some money out there for enforcement for ATV stuff. Or we have this BLM contract that sits out here, or we have Marine grant money, seatbelt money, DUI money. The problem is there's not enough resources to provide that. And so one thing or the other suffers from it. And that's what I feel is going to happen with this. There's going to be a level of expectations if you create that position for code enforcement. And if that guy is responding to calls for the sheriff's office, then the code enforcement aspect is going to be second chair. And you're going to still have this community input saying, I made a complaint a month ago and nothing's been done. Well, this deputy has been called for the last 2 weeks. He's on vacation for this week. We'll try to get him there next week. And Now he focuses all of his time on the code enforcement, and now we're getting guys with their days off canceled because he can't fill in over here. I don't think either side is getting justifiably served because the guy's spread too thin. I think initially, one guy is not gonna even be able to put a dent in the enforcement countywide. You got 8,400 square miles of issues from one end to the other. And that one body is gonna be trying to enforce these things on a day-to-day basis. And you're gonna have individuals like Carl Shumway that's gonna call every single week and complain. I made a complaint last month on this, and I made a complaint last week on this, and I made a complaint yesterday on this. How come this guy isn't doing anything? You created a position, how come it's not fixed? And I think that it's a full-time job, and probably more than one person.
You could be exactly right. My guess, my glass is half full. I think it's in the right direction. Does it answer?
I think it is too, I don't mean that it's not to move in the right direction. I just think that I think we're combining apples and oranges and hoping that we get bananas out the other end, and I don't think that fixes either side of it. I think it's a thought, it's a suggestion, it's maybe a plan to work towards, but I don't think it fixes either issue that is being addressed.
Well, I think you're exactly right, Paul, but it's a start, it's the way I look at it, and will it have the strengths and weaknesses? No doubt. But right now, today, in the sheriff's department, we hear that there's a need to even get one call relieved from an employee is of importance. So we're sitting here trying to weigh that out. And it does come down to money. And then we have all these nuisance complaints out here that we're not able to get to now. We would have to take the burden of when the people call and say you're not even doing it. We could say, you know what? We've started a program. We know it needs improvement. We know that we're going to have to find a way to fund it more, but this is a start. And it's not perfect, but we're sitting here strategizing today of trying to find a way to maybe take this little bit of money that's set aside and make a little bit of a difference. It's not going to save the sheriff's department, but maybe we'll knock off one or two of those little components. Then over here on the nuisance side, maybe we could start knocking some of those off. And it's for discussion today. It's to be able to come up with it. We keep coming back there, as Commissioner Shown says, and what we're doing is trying to take this little bit of money and making a difference. And I tell you, I'd love to be able to sit here and say we can start a nuisance/code enforcement department with 2 people with office help and an enforcer and put 8 deputies on. I'd love to be able to do that. Plus, we need a new jail because we're overpopulated there, and on and on and on. We can't do that, so we're trying to find a way to manage the dollars we have and get something out of them.
I'll interject. I have to agree with the sheriff and the other sheriff that mixing the two doesn't resolve it. So I'm on a different section. The sheriff offered up a scenario which I don't really want to bring up now because it has a name to it. But I'd like for you to share. And yes, we're not to make a decision today. That was not my intent to put these on.
What kind of scenario, on code enforcement or sheriff's deputy?
Both.
Both?
But it has a name to it, so I don't want to, it's premature. Some rearrangements. But what we don't have is a group to sit down and come up with a plan. To toss some things out. It's good to put things on the table, but we haven't really sat down in a work scenario, the work group, and looked at different options and what's the plus of some analysis. And I'd like for us to do that. So.
It sounds like you have an idea, so run with it.
Well, it had to be an agreement, us having a work group.
I've thrown my thoughts out there.
Yeah.
But
That's supportive work group, having those discussions. We've gotta get off of square one.
we have to get it from home to first base, to second base, to third base, and that's what our plan is.
And I think we'll all agree, we're not necessarily saying we're gonna get it right the first time, but we're gonna move in the right direction.
And the key word is right.
Yeah, and community, and you just wish that, you know, it doesn't all come down to you to take care of everybody in the whole community. I mean, take some pride into your own spot and help your neighbor out.
Well, to institute that pride, that's been brought to me several times over the past years by different citizens, is that the pride of the community is diminishing and we need to turn it around. Now, using Christmas Valley as an example, I've seen a surge of desire for community pride. And we can't go around saying, well, they've been that way for 20 years. We have to progress from today into tomorrow and capitalize on that community pride.
I'm a real believer, bring the solution forward, make a difference, make it happen. I mean, that's sort of the way I try to work myself. I haven't, there's apparently some things the sheriff and you've been working on I'm not aware of.
Well,
If you got some solutions, some ideas, reorganization or whatever, bring them forward. Let's get going. And I mean, we've talked about this for years.
Yeah.
We talked about it before you guys even came on. I'm ready for the next level.
that's where we all should be. Amen.
The solution that Commissioner Kestner and I have talked about, I have also talked about it with Commissioner Schown and you, Commissioner Winter. So you're aware of what the idea is. Maybe it's just not clicking right, but we have discussed
Must
it.
not be. Must
But-
not be.
But I'll
Well, I
say,
know that Paul and I have talked with both Commissioner Schown and you about this.
Okay.
I have talked to Commissioner.
Obviously, we need to visit offline because there's a name attached to something, so I'm sure you'll rekindle.
You'll, when we start talking about it, you'll remember.
Sure.
Yeah, it sounded like something new, so chances are, we've talked about a lot of things, so chances are we have.
so my emphasis, take that next step and let's all come up with a plan. I keep having people ask me about where we're going with the road department. And I think we have an obligation to tell the public on the camera where we at, Jay.
So we're done with the others. The road department needs more money and more people.
They need a lot more money.
But more pressingly, they need the roadmaster.
About $2 million more a year will help keep them.
So the roadmaster retired, so 2 weeks ago retired, and after many years of service, he has left us, so we need to refill that position. Currently, we have a good group of employees out there, and the commissioners have asked Brad to step up and kind of coordinate that. But wanted to start this discussion today, give me some direction where you want me to go with this.
And
We haven't even talked
And
about
we've talked about it
I mean,
online.
we haven't hired this position.
Right, so before you go, Jay, let me just say, because I've asked you yesterday, and now with my fellow commissioners here, we don't have, I thought we might do this tomorrow, but this is fine today. I would like to see us be able to just have Jay put together just a little short notice that our former road official has retired, and we are actively in the process of putting together a position description and future outreach, so that people out there are aware of the fact that might be interested in that kind of position that we're going to discuss here in a little bit as to what that's going to be, are aware of that. It goes to what Commissioner Kestner was saying. I've been asked by a lot of people too about, what are we looking to do, and that's the board's decision. And that's what we're here today to do, is give Jay some opportunity to start to craft a meaningful position description that we all agree we're going to be outreaching for. So, does anybody have a problem with the first part of that?
I agree with that very much. I've had multiple people come to me. I told them that we would be getting out the job description and the advertisement as soon as the Board of Commissioners had a chance to concur on what we're looking at. With that said, I think both of you should have what I immediately after the retirement was got a whole AOC, and there was the information sent out that they had, job description from Burke County and some others, interview questions and everything to start compiling so you guys could work on it and make suggestions to Jay. I put some time into it. And I think, as you guys are very aware, we/Jay has been very inundated with the mental health contract, and so I want to take the opportunity to tell Jay and Denise and others and Nikki and everybody that worked on that mental health and continuing to work on the mental health chamber. Thank you. This would have been before us before now, but been quite swamped, and both of us have. But we both put some time into this, and we need to get to the next level. So I'll say the rest of mine until after Jay says whatever he has to say. But there's a lot for this, the Board of Commissioners, to give Jay direction on how to craft this. So,
Well, it can't go forward, the part of this without clearly noting, Commissioner Winters, our thanks and gratitude to you. I totally agree with those other folks you've named that have worked tirelessly for the last number of months to get us to where we're at with our mental health program, and thank you literally from the bottom of my heart, as well as the extra workload you've taken on us as the designated road official. But it goes beyond the title. It's just working with the employees and you know, keeping us in, you know, some non-turbulent waters, just moving forward, and all the other things that you've done. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate Jay. He's been just totally swamped, and Denise, and everything that she's been doing, and as you said, Ann, and just everybody involved in that. So thank you.
Just the team concept of just going all the way back to, and we're on mental health now, to just get an advisory group that had been defunct back going in interaction with employees.
What we have in front of us is the road issue. Jay?
Well, I think the first place to start,
Thank everybody for.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We, not only has our roadmaster resigned, but he was also retired. He's also the landfill manager. Where do you want me to go with this? There's a lot of common interests tie in, but
what do you need from the commissioners to give you direction?
would you like this open position to include the landfill as part of that job?
So
And if so, in what way?
I'll start the discussion as far as how I feel. I've talked to you about this. I believe that the landfill needs to be integrated into the road department. I think we need to allow ourselves as much flexibility in how those duties are carried out. The best place, in my opinion, for those to reside as far as the responsibility, but it doesn't have to reside there as far as who does it, is with this newly advertised position. I think we need to talk about the position, if we advertise it as the road boss, the road master, the road official, or as a public works director. We've had that discussion in the past too. But I would really like to see the landfill remain under the auspice of the road department.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Well, for me, it's relatively even a little more simple than that. It is a roadmaster job description that's known throughout the state. They can see roadmaster. People's hung up on the name. I'm not going to die on the sword for that. The road official is by statute the duty that the roadmaster takes on, or should take on. That's for road vacation, valley vacation, and so on, many other things. But as far as the landfill goes, I believe that it definitely fits because of, it's looking at the efficiencies of being able to do both. The efficiencies with the landfill is that we definitely intend on hopefully using the road department to do the closure, which we're right in the process of. We got the permit in, application for the permit, and as part of my liaison updates, but anyways, DEQ, we have to get that closure done right away. Cost savings to our taxpayers would be to try to use the land or the road department. But more so than just that is if our road boss, road official, road master, whatever you want to call him or her, is in North Lake, they can stop by the transfer site. They can do the work. You're doubling over. Where if we separate it out and it's another department, then we're doing twice the travel. That's one aspect of it. We've used the luxury of using the office manager at the road shops. We reimburse that time through the general fund, through the landfill fund. But I would say that it shouldn't be a whole lot different as far as road official and landfill than what we have been. Now then, I think that whoever we hire as the roadmaster, if they felt the need within their department to put some of that landfill duty on one of their lead people or something there, I'm not against them delegating it out like that. Just that the buck would stop with the roadmaster. That whenever it comes to dealing with DEQ, whenever it comes to dealing with all this other stuff, that they're the direct line.
Well, that's kind of the vision that you probably stated it better. The only thing that I wanted to comment on, Commissioners, that names of positions shouldn't be that important. And it's not in this case. I can go with whatever we want, but I think it more accurately from years past when other people, and it wasn't the road boss or road master that was doing the landfill as a separate job, because it was a separate job and it was separately compensated through the general fund that you alluded to. I wouldn't mind personally seeing this referred to as a public works, because that's what we're doing in more than just roads. But I agree with you, and that's what I was trying to say earlier, that the duties of the landfill or the responsibility for the landfill and all that goes with it would go under there with the ability. And as we get to that point in time, and we advertise this and so on and so forth, when we get to the point of compensation, I do think you need to have a little bit of clarity there. Are we going to encourage whoever we hire, he or she, that part of one of the other road department employees' responsibilities are going to be over here, unlike what we've been doing for the past number of years, where it's been clearly the duties, except for when they go out and do special projects, whether it was the fence or, as you alluded to, with the closure, the future closure of the existing landfill. So there's a little more work to do there to get that worked out. But yeah, I'm ready to move with that type.
Darrell, would you like to take on the landfill?
I'm open to options.
Well, we traditionally have had the two combined, and we don't have having some of the landfill duties assigned to another road. Concerns me a little bit in that we're down to a skeleton crew already, and it's going to get even thinner in a few years. But I'm good at this time with going kind of the status quo of what we have for discussion.
Okay, for the roadmaster, the road duties, we need to kind of give me some direction as far as education experience, what we're looking for. Or would we be, we're looking for someone who's ready to take that next step, or someone who has the season, or already seasoned. Yeah, I mean, what's most important to you? Are we looking for someone who has a lot of road construction experience? Are we looking for a combination of that and supervisory and administrative experience, local government budgeting, where do we go? There's a lot of different ways we can look at it, and it would help to, we can always say a combination of education, experience, and skills can be considered qualifying, but it would help to know at this point what we're prioritizing.
Well, for me, I don't think we're prioritizing people with degrees. I think we're prioritizing people that have a proven track record of being able to do, as you alluded to, Jay, many of these facets of the job, because we don't have a large crew. The crew itself knows how to do the work that they're assigned to do, and they're an excellent crew. We all understand that. But we need someone that has had the background. Commissioner Winters might have a better perspective on it than either of the other two of us, but I really believe that they need to know how to build roads. They need to know how to maintain roads. They need to know what quality oil is, and they need to know what budgets are and the constraints that we live within, that we don't have an unlimited budget. They do need to be well-rounded to the degree that we can get someone like that.
They need to be able to have supervisory skills, they need to have planning skills, sketching things, and all that stuff. And then our crew will take it from there. So some experience is.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, we see a lot of job descriptions out there that mention a PE or a bachelor's degree in engineering. Most of them aren't requiring it. They're saying this would be preferred. Where are we at on that? It's just proven track record. We're not looking for, we're not going to, obviously we're not going to require any kind of a formal degree, but we're looking for proven track record, basically.
I think that especially in this field is that we stay with our typical boilerplate is a minimum of a high school diploma, and you can list out other things that would be beneficial basically to apply for this position. I think that one of the main things is a supervisor. They'd have to have, we need to spell out that you need to have had blank number of years of supervision, supervisory experience or whatever. On the engineering side of it, that if we start going into that side of it, what kind of engineer do you want? Right now, the amount of engineering that we need at the road department is pretty little. You go into public works, like the cities and the towns where they have infrastructure, water, sewer, and the public works people, then an engineer is really important. But we contract that out, and even our federal grants, that engineering STEM. So I'm not hung up on needing an engineer. If we have somebody apply and they have an engineer degree or experience, is welcome. But I don't think I would hate for somebody not apply because of it says engineering on there. Because there's a lot of really good people. One just retired from ODOT that went way up. They wouldn't qualify for his job today if he reapplied because of what they put on it. And I do not want to limit our hiring pool by doing that.
I think you said it best, Commissioner. You alluded to something to do with just a statement there that says, please feel free to list all of your other qualifications, education, etc. But it's not part of the criteria in order to apply and be considered. Because that would be kind of a nice thing to do as a tiebreaker in an evaluation. If you had two equal people and you had someone that had this or had someone that had that, but it'd be a shame not to have the person that didn't have that specific degree that was excellent.
I think something like, some experience applying those engineering principles and surveying principles, you know, in road construction. I mean, that would kind of capture what you're looking for, a proven track record of having done that. You're not an engineer, but.
Yeah, because you don't have a road that's engineered out there by one of our contract engineers, and then we go out to build it, and we don't have the skills to know what it is we're doing. So that would capture that completely.
And building new roads is probably a very minimum expectation at this point on this road maintenance.
I'm just looking at Crook counties here, and they have minimum 10 years experience in road department environment. I would like to cut that to 5 years, just for discussion. And they have minimum 5 years supervisory experience. I'd like to stay with 5 years on the supervisory
If
experience.
we get people with greater, I'll get rank higher.
Well,
But it leaves the window open for more.
yeah, I'm right on, almost opposite what I was saying earlier. You do have to put a,
You have to have a minimum.
yeah, you have to have a minimum, or else we're going to have some people that don't qualify. I want to make sure that if there's people within the department that want to apply, that they have the opportunity to apply also. I don't want to make the standards so high, because I tell you, I put our skeleton crew against anybody in the state or even the nation of their skills and abilities. And so I want to, that's my thoughts. I think you guys are on the same page.
Well, the evaluation, as you just said, Commissioner, will determine how people rank, but we want them to be able to apply to be ranked.
That helps me a lot. If there's anything else you want to share, I think I have enough.
When will you accept it?
Let's see.
What I would like to see is for Jay, and you know I'll be involved, but as soon as you get a boilerplate job description put together, get it to us individually, let us beat it up, and, you know, it's hard to sit here, because we'll all come with some different ideas than what we're talking about now. It's good to have the discussion amongst us, but I always come up with something about 20 minutes later or at 1 o'clock in the morning, think, darn, I wish I would have mentioned that. So I want that opportunity for each one of us to.
Yeah, and then we should meet as a group to finalize it.
Okay, now can I say something?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So just from my small amount of time at the road department, I heard so many comments about ways to build roads and how to do it, blah, 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 that were being suggested, but they didn't work in this type of area. And to me, that's something that would be really handy if it was in there, that they were familiar with road construction in similar areas. Not rural, but our climate, our freezing, our four seasons, our all that stuff. Because somebody from the East Coast, it is a different way to build than it is here. Just a thought.
Was that road construction or road maintenance?
Well, maintenance and construction. Well, but anyway, I just heard that comment over and over that, yeah, it doesn't work here. So I just was throwing it out there, because.
I think that's an excellent question during the interview time, is what is your experience dealing with oils and overlaying in a eastern Oregon area that has 6 months of winter time.
Fluctuation from 97 degrees to minus 26 degrees. That has an impact on the structure.
I do want it spelled out very explicit in there. This is an exempt position, and it takes a lot of hours.
So maybe you could capitalize that, put it in bold, italicize and underline.
Okay.
Yeah, it's,
I have something to you by the end of the week.
Well, I did appreciate those other position descriptions. I printed them off and put them in my briefcase, and my wife will tell you she was very frustrated last week when I took the days off with our grandson, so preparing for the evening. I was reading because they were busy.
It's like reading.
Well, that was good to hear. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Jay.
Any liaison updates?
I have a lot, if you guys want to listen to them.
Go for it.
All right, just for awareness, keep on our our thoughts, and Denise has been working on this district meeting. It's hosted by Lake County, September 29th, if I'm not mistaken. Really, really great news. Everything is done with the Smink Museum except for on Thursday, we'll have an exchange of the key ceremony at 1 o'clock at the Smink Museum. Press is invited. I know they've been invited. Denise has made sure invited the local DER, the state DER, Town of Lakeview, and many others. And if you think of somebody we haven't invited. So that's at 1 o'clock on
There is one change on
Thursday.
that, since you're doing that. We do have to do cake down in Memorial Hall. There's a meeting here that day, so. So the cake part of that ceremony will be downstairs.
What flavor is it?
Chocolate and vanilla.
So other things I have is on Friday, there's go-ed at 10 o'clock. I have rearranged my schedule to make an executive SCOAC meeting for that morning for the executive board. We're going to be strategizing on when OTC is in Klamath Falls, working on that. So that will be this Friday, and then week of the 15th, 18th, and 19th, I'll be working with OTC, going before them as the chairman. Just a little bit of update. We've talked quite a bit about the road department. They're doing their second lift out at Bush on the federal highways dollars as we speak. Road department has been doing excellent. Can't say for the office help, the whole crew, and the lead person, Delbert Davis and Dusty Hahn, name it. Some people been doing an excellent job out there. Been working with Atkins Engineering because of the Dog Lake Plain project. Will be starting this fall. We have more culverts to put in. We have gabions to do, and so we've been working with Atkins Engineering. Christie's been keeping everybody in the loop. You will see before we get a roadmaster hired, we will have some crushing for gabion rock that will have to come before the Board of Commissioners, and some other things to do with that out there. We're trying to get in the middle of it, some blade patching done at the fairgrounds. We missed the first opportunity. It's hard to find the hot mix to be able to get it here. And the other thing was is we ended up having to grind the bridges out in the bush area, so it took away that window of opportunity. I'm working very hard to make that happen, Ronnie.
I know.
Just not enough hours in the day for the guys right now. Landfill, last week we had our DEQ had their public meeting, not public hearing, at it here. Prior to that, I met with our consultant, Mark Inger, Joe Gingrich from DEQ, Melissa Drewback, and Hal, I think the guy from DEQ, along with our operator, Derek Brown, and his wife, and Christy Berman, the manager, office manager. Very productive, talking about the future of the landfill. This meeting was about the small landfill exemption we're asking for. Very good meeting. I've already emailed Mark Inger pushing forward. We have to get our landfill closure plan in place before we could even get that permit. So wasn't absolutely aware that wasn't together. So awkward moment or two, but we've made it happen. Mark emailed me this morning and he's going to get to work on it. So that's huge news because if we get this, the extension of the landfill in years could be 60 years into our community. That's a long time, saves a lot of costs. So the actual public meeting part of it, we had 0 attendance. Jimmy came, and I believe that he talked with DEQ and probably have an article in the paper this week that it was the pre-meeting with our operator was very good, very good. So the only other thing to just mention, not to get into the weeds on, District Attorney Office has sent down some requests. I don't know if either one of you have seen them on personnel up there. Jay and I have been, this is one of those other things that we have discussed, but not been able to get absolutely before the Board of Commissioners and everything. The current EA definitely wants to see some different structure. I've had a tendency to lean, it's right here in the middle of campaign and everything for that office, and we will have the new district attorney come January, and the new district attorney should be involved in the structure of employees up there. So as I'm working on that, it might not be the direction that our current EA or even the employees favor as much, but I'm trying to be respectful of building that relationship and making sure that it has the best opportunities for success, I guess I'd say. But working on that, if anybody comes to you, any ideas, get them to Jay, as we're working forward on that, trying to keep that balance going. Interesting whenever somebody's not going to be in office, but they have very strong suggestions one way or the other. So working on that, that's probably enough for now. I'm busy on a lot of other things too.
Well, I've got a list, but I'll be quick. But Commissioner and Commissioner Kessler was right when we were talking about I think the road official, and we got off onto the other things. But as you went through there, just for my liaison update start, as you talked about the landfill and the road department projects that are going on, and soon to be completed, everything to do, I mean, initial to do with where we were and where we're at with mental health. I honestly can't thank you enough. Because if it had been, I won't speak for Commissioner Kessler, but if it had been me needing to make sure all that happened, it wouldn't have happened on behalf of our citizens. When we talk about providing these services, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's tremendous that it's just gotten done.
Thank you. I should have mentioned, it's a great day that we've been able to finalize the contract as a whole board with our mental health and look forward to the hospital taking it to another level. I should have mentioned that in my updates, but.
Getting that contract signed to be effective August 1st was critical.
Yep.
So just really quickly, State Water Resources Department Drought Task Force that I got appointed to by the governor's office, by the governor, but we all know how those things go, was apparently a little bit more involved than I realized, because I wanted, after the first meeting that I attended a couple of weeks ago, and I saw the direction that the legislature was actually going to take this, to suggest that Alan Unger or Craig Pope from Polk County and Alan from Deschutes, one of those two gentlemen, go ahead and take on that, because they had both applied. I didn't realize that before. Long story short is the governor's chief of staff for policy on public lands and water resources has called me 3 times. We're talking. There was a meeting yesterday. I didn't attend. I didn't think it was critical. She's going to call me next week. And I'm going to stay involved. The short version of this is I was looking at the opportunity to do long-term solutions. The legislature, and I'll just say clearly they're under the gun, but they want to put a Band-Aid on the short term. I wasn't the right person. There's a lot of people in the 15-member group that are very good. And what they've asked me to do is still stay involved. I'm probably not going to travel to Salem. It's a 3-day operation to get involved in those day-long meetings. They're hoping to have some half-day. I'm hoping to conference in. I may make one trip. It has been suggested, and I'll talk to Laura about it next week, is when the final legislative package is done for this fall. And that was the other part of it. I would have been gone 3 days, 3 different times in August and 3 different times in September when the final schedule came out. I said, I can't do it. But I want to be able to present to the legislature when the short-term solution for drought, future drought is presented, what I believe on behalf of all of us that believe in public lands and its play into the long-term solution as a help. that I'm able to do that. Laura was really pretty interested in that happening. So, on to the next, the 10-year biomass pilot project. Just had a correspondence from Julia and Jeff this morning. That's hoping that potential legislation is, the hope is to introduce it in September back in the Senate. Congressman Walden, he's a little bit, I wasn't at the meeting, but he's a little bit hung up on the pay for on the RINs, but totally supports the legislative effort. The Senate's the one that's going to identify the money, so he's not as hung up as they always mention that in the first initial discussions about it. SCOED meeting I'll be at Friday in Klamath. Red Rock meetings are continuing that we're having, and it's basically built around the biomass pilot. I've got our sector meeting on workforce. I'll be going to that in Klamath at the end of the month. Also the WIFLIC meeting, and I'll be going to a meeting, an update, Joe and I think Joe's going to be able to be there in the first part of September. So right now it's scheduled in Eugene on the cohesive strategy, but the following week, we have a work session and a regular meeting on the 6th and 7th, but I'll be in Boise. It's a 4-day time frame. I'll travel on Tuesday, and we have an all-day field trip over in Boise. The BLM sponsoring Steve Ellis has set it up, and then we have an all-day meeting on Thursday the 8th, and then I'll be traveling back on Friday the 9th.
That's,
September. Yeah. Right after Labor Day. I'll be leaving that. So, that's what I got.
I just wondering, you look like you.
well, I'm just going to,
Notations.
I'm just going to mention one other thing. I did fit in the middle of all this, a great road trip with Jim Walls and Levi Old to Hart Mountain. He's a Great Basin, I don't know, coordinator for the partnership. It was having Jim Walls, and I invited him, and making that tour was very good, just to bring some other perspectives of managing the styles and the benefit of what's being managed off of the refuge, and maybe the refuge could benefit from some of the management styles that the refuge is not using, staying politically correct. So anyways,
Like fuel reduction.
yes, it was, well, and using cattle as a tool maybe. But it was a good tour. Just I forgot to update you guys there. Just trying to make sure you guys knew that I went out there and done that. I tried to voice unified thoughts of help keep our heritage alive. So yeah. Anyways,
I think I have you coming up shortly. Let's go ahead, of course, on Friday. Now, last Friday, the Lake Health District had an interview of a candidate for the mental health director. Jay Collins was going to attend that, but he got pulled away, so so I went and sat in. A very good candidate. However, they have a second candidate that made an application, and for consistency, if it's okay with you, Commissioner Winter, if I sit in on the second interview.
absolutely.
Because it goes hand in hand with the first time.
I had no idea Jay didn't make it. I had a conflict that day, family reunion.
Yeah, he was there, but he did get pulled away, as Commissioner Kessler said.
Yeah, so I don't have no problem. Stay right with him.
Allen Parks and I and Merkley's office working on trying to see what we can do as far as we institute a banking service in Christmas Valley. Sam Skimpy, we had a barbecue with lots of folks in the bank. I won't mention the bank name. Last Thursday. Other things, still working on internet and so forth. And we met with MoDOT because we had this grant for the feasibility study, and Chester Robinson, the CEO, County Administrative Officer, suggested an alternative provider. And I can't mention that right now because I haven't approached them. I don't want to put it out before I even talk to them. But it's a provider that is gaining momentum across the nation. Along with that, been working ever since I've been here, trying to get cell service in the Flush area. And I keep getting not enough folks to justify the expense. FirstNet, we call what FirstNet is, it's an emergency responding network. They have Flush scheduled for 2017 to get some service. And I've been working with Annette Levy and Chris Cameron from Oregon Biz. How can we combine FirstNet responding service infrastructure, cell service infrastructure, and internet infrastructure instead of everybody expending their own money? So on the 17th, I'll be in Salem to meet with FirstNet and Chris Cameron and Annette to discuss strategies. How can we leverage 3 different types of services into one infrastructure? Next week, I've been away from early learning and education, which is a passion of mine, not just for the kids. Everybody think early learning is just for the kids. It is. I got great passion for all the kids need to have the same chance to get advanced in life. But what's not often mentioned is how young kids today is our community leaders of tomorrow. And I've been off that subject for almost a year now. But there's a conference, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics on Monday the 8th, and early learning on Tuesday. This is in the Dallas conference. And then Regional Achievement Collaborative, that's the grant we got for Bob Nash at one time. So we're going to the Dallas on the 8th, 9th, and 10th. Of course, I don't drive all that fast, so I need to leave on Sunday to get there.
Do we have a, I'm just, that's
The 17th is a commissioner work day.
I just look and make sure that when you both were gonna be gone, that we still have our work session now.
Yeah, I'm here next week. And
I'm talking
The
September.
FirstNet,
Are you talking August?
the FirstNet is the 17th of this month.
Oh, I was in the wrong month.
The conference is on the early learning is next week, so it's not a conflict. Now, the 17th, we'll be in Salem with FirstNet and cell service. That is a commissioner regular work day.
Board meeting, you're here on the 17th of August? Okay.
Discovered.
So, Commissioner, before you finish, going back to the MODOC discussion, I'm a little confused. I thought we were gonna solicit a contractor to go out and tell us what kind of coverage we needed. But I'm hearing we're already talking to providers to provide it. Am I hearing that wrong?
No.
Okay.
We will have a contractor, but one means of providing it is this organization already. So, but they haven't discussed it. Not saying we're going to recruit them. We'll look at different options. We want to make sure that organization will have the name on the plate as a potential provider.
So we're talking providers, we're not talking about actual areas that don't have coverage. Well, I thought this grant that we got was to go out and identify, some contractor was gonna go out and identify where our weaknesses were so that eventually someone could come in from private industry and say, okay, well, this is what I have to do in order to get service, internet and.
The grant will cover 2 things.
Okay.
Again, the demographics, population, sparsity, income, children, poverty, etc. Demographics. The other part of that grant will have somebody that come in and get all that. Also, to say this type of providing over there microwave or fiber or whatever is the best way to get there. And I'm saying in that last scenario provided, I'd like to have this one organization to say, yeah, we may be of consideration. they haven't considered, like the contractor may come up and say, microwave is the only way to get there, but he never thought about this other organization. So I'd like to make sure that that other organization is in contractors, bucket of solutions.
Okay.
And several years ago, well, a year or 2 years ago, I one of the Oregon Broadband Advisory Committee, we had folks from the Oregon Department of Education talking about getting better internet service to our schools. And I made mentions of Paisley along with Flush, whatever. And we're moving, we think we might have something in line to get fiber to Paisley. It's a little early in the game, but it's on the horizon, hopefully.
Good.
That's what I've got.
I don't want to belabor anything. I wasn't at the meeting when the money was set, it moved over into contingency that was set aside basically nuisance / law enforcement. How much was that?
130.
Okay. Just as I'm thinking, just trying to come with ideas or something.
Well, if there's nothing else, I've been giving myself a haircut, my own haircut for some time now. I think I'll have a professional clean it up. And 22 after 12, adjourned.